The young mage sighs over his failed experiment, realizing the magic is too unstable. Furthermore, he admits that such power is impossible to control against super life forms. Meanwhile, feeling completely defeated, he lets out a long and weary sigh. Consequently, casting a flight spell, he decides to head toward a bustling city. While soaring, he considers the limits of solo travel and the need for allies. Abruptly, a violent spatial distortion erupts in the middle of the sky. Right then, a massive black rift tears through the atmosphere before his eyes. In a panic, he checks if his own magic caused the spatial anomaly. Suddenly, a mysterious, pale hand reaches out from the darkness of the tear. Shocked, he watches as a strange figure begins to emerge from the void. Then, a body slowly descends through the swirling waves of black energy. Gradually, the silhouette of a beautiful woman becomes visible amidst the darkness. Finally, she steps fully into the light, radiating a powerful otherworldly aura. Upon appearing, the woman identifies herself as Lisha, the goddess of summoning. He remains frozen in absolute silence, processing the divine presence before him. However, skeptical of her claim, he struggles to hold back a burst of laughter. Regaining his composure, he clears his throat and asks what she is talking about. Patiently, she explains that she came from another world to summon a hero. Asserting he is the strongest human nearby, she leaves him completely bewildered. With a gentle smile, she confirms that this legendary encounter is very real. Recognizing that she read his mind through his anti-magic, Rizal accepts his title as the world's strongest. Consequently, he ponders whether joining her might finally make his dream of defeating the ultimate life form possible. Delighted by his cooperation, the goddess reacts with overwhelming gratitude and bows repeatedly in excitement. Curious about his new role, Rizal calmly inquires about the specific tasks he must undertake. She explains that he must follow royal orders to defeat the Demon King, leaving Rizal momentarily confused. Shortly after, the goddess gestures toward the dark abyss, asking if he is prepared for the journey. Closing his eyes, he gives a simple affirmation and prepares to step into the unknown void. As he reaches out, a brilliant light envelops his hand at the threshold of the distortion. Suddenly, dimensional energy crackles violently as the process of crossing between worlds begins in earnest. He feels a powerful force pulling his physical form into the spatial rift as reality dissolves around him. Resigned to the risk, he tells himself that one cannot catch a tiger cub without entering its den. Choosing to remain passive, he allows the strange sensations to wash over him without offering any resistance. Meanwhile, the digital light distortion intensifies as his consciousness drifts through the boundary of space and time. Opening his eyes slightly, he senses the chaotic transfer is finally reaching its inevitable conclusion. Abruptly, he arrives in a majestic hall dominated by a colossal goddess statue alongside several other strangers. Gazing around the grand chamber, he realizes he has officially set foot in a completely different world. A regal figure wearing a crown welcomes him warmly, expressing joy at their successful arrival. Stepping forward, the king identifies himself and explains that he is the one who summoned them. Observing his surroundings, Rizal notices 3 other distinct individuals who were also brought to this palace. In a quiet aside, the king confirms with his advisor that these 4 are the chosen heroes. Rizal quietly observes the unfolding scene, confirming his suspicions about the true nature of his summoning. He quickly evaluates his fellow heroes, noting that their mana levels appear quite meager for supposed saviors. Following this, a palace official starts explaining the world's history, while Rizal considers checking his own status. Deciding to be cautious, he chooses to listen to the explanation before making any sudden moves or reveals. The guide describes the world's inhabitants, specifically categorizing them into humans, demi-humans, and the aggressive demonic race. Rizal observes that this social structure mirrors his original world, finding the familiarity somewhat comforting, yet strange. Furthermore, the official stresses that the demonic race poses an unprecedented threat to the survival of humanity. With an intense gaze, he emphasizes that the demon's recent actions have pushed the kingdom to its limit. The explanation continues, highlighting the specific danger that necessitates the presence of otherworldly heroes in this land. As the official introduces Frode and Riel, he explains how the demonic influence has rapidly expanded lately. He then presents Banza and the mysterious Rizal, identifying them as the chosen ones meant to stop them. Simultaneously, Rizal reminisces about his past experiences hunting demons and receiving public gratitude for his heroic deeds. Promising a life of luxury, the king offers an immense reward to anyone who can defeat the Demon King. While the mercenary and adventurer celebrate the prospect of wealth, Rizal remains stoic and focused on his task. Afterward, a maid brings in a cart containing a magical device intended to measure their current combat effectiveness. Rizal analyzes the crystal ball, identifying it as a sophisticated tool for quantifying mana and magical control levels. Eager to prove his worth, Riel steps forward confidently to be the first hero to undergo the measurement. Upon contact, the crystal emits a sudden, brilliant flash of light that startles everyone in the royal hall. Stunned by the unexpected result, the official begins to panic as he stares at the glowing magical sphere. Trembling with visible anxiety, he prepares to announce the shocking combat power reading to the gathered heroes. The king and Lycia rejoice as the first measurement reveals an incredible combat power of 4,097. Rizal watches with confusion, questioning whether such a seemingly low number is actually impressive in this world. While Riel boasts about his success, Frode steps forward politely to take his turn at the crystal. Both Frode and Banza achieve remarkable scores, causing the royal hall to erupt with excitement and praise. Overwhelmed by the results, the official calls upon the final hero, and Rizal calmly accepts the summons. Recalling the previous system error, Rizal approaches the pedestal as the other three heroes watch him with skepticism. With everyone's eyes fixed on him, he slowly extends his gloved hand toward the surface of the sphere. Silence fills the grand hall as he finally makes contact with the device under the watchful gaze of royalty. Surprisingly, the crystal remains completely dark, prompting the official to sweat profusely as Rizal notes the lack of reaction. Nervous laughter breaks the tension while the official frantically checks if the ancient measuring tool is malfunctioning. Staring at the blank result on the sphere, the desperate examiner begins to doubt the device's current integrity. Sensing the growing unease, Rizal simply asks what the issue is, while the official remains frozen in disbelief. The frantic man tries to recalibrate the system, begging for another chance to verify the hero's hidden power. Giving it another shot, Rizal once again places his palm onto the artifact to finalize the reading. Under intense scrutiny, the official watches the sphere intently for any sign of a numerical response from the magic. To the absolute horror of everyone present, the official announces that Rizal's combat power is a total of 0. Furious and disappointed, the king demands an explanation, while Rizal attempts to clarify the nature of the measurement. Without letting him finish, the enraged monarch lets out a thunderous scream, ordering the failure to leave at once. He explicitly refuses to acknowledge a hero with no mana, pointing toward the exit with cold, unbridled contempt. Desperate to defend himself, Rizal pleads for them to wait, insisting that he can indeed use powerful magic. Frantically searching for a way to prove his talent, he spots a pile of charcoal in the palace fireplace. Walking confidently toward the hearth, he instructs the skeptical audience to observe his true power closely. Casting a complex molecular magic circle, he begins compressing the coal with an immense amount of pressure. After a brilliant flash, he explains that this advanced transmuting spell requires a minimum combat power of 7,000. The official stammers in utter disbelief, unable to fathom how simple charcoal could be transformed into a diamond. Holding the gem, he asks if his capabilities are finally clear, yet the king only responds with suspicious anger. Pointing a trembling finger, the monarch bellows that such impossible magic simply cannot exist in this world. Desperately, he argues that such spells are common sense where he comes from. Trying to maintain his composure, the king ruthlessly interrupts his explanation, shouting for him to be silent while he cowers in shock. Labeling him a worthless fraud, the ruler commands that he be thrown out of the palace doors immediately. Meanwhile, the other summoned heroes laugh mockingly at his plight, ridiculing his desperate attempt at what they call trickery. Stunned, he looks toward the goddess, realizing that no one in this entire realm understands his high-level magic. The goddess ignores his plea with cold indifference as the king summons the royal guards to remove the charlatan. Spears bar his path while the monarch banishes him forever, mockingly allowing him to keep the small diamond. Suddenly, the scene shifts as he finds himself alone in the middle of a bustling city square. Clutching his head in a state of mental exhaustion, he draws the concerned stares of passing townspeople. Collapsing by a fountain, he groans in despair, wondering how his heroic journey could possibly end like this. The memory of the king's rejection haunts him, leaving him feeling completely betrayed by this world's absurd settings. He remains in deep silence for a long moment, struggling to process the unfairness of his sudden exile. Finally, he shakes off his self-pity and decides to change his mindset to survive in this new land. Walking along the cobblestone streets, Riesel decides to formulate a plan for his immediate survival in the city. Realizing he needs funds first, he looks for a place to trade the diamond he produced earlier. Passing by shelves filled with various jars and alchemical supplies, he finds a small local workshop. The sign indicates the shop specializes in weapons and tools and provides a service for buying valuable items. Approaching the counter, Riesel presents his gem to the elderly shopkeeper, who reacts with visible astonishment. Examining the stone closely, the man stammers that it is a magnificent diamond of exceptional quality. Riesel casually mentions it is artificial, leading the shopkeeper to suggest visiting a high-end jeweler instead. Confused by the reaction, Riesel inquires about the existence of specialty shops for man-made gemstones in this world. As the shopkeeper explains the gem's true worth, Riesel considers its potential industrial uses for sharpening blades. Determined to avoid being labeled a fraud, he focuses on securing quick cash before his origins are discovered. Switching topics, he asks about local lodging costs, and the shopkeeper estimates a night at 10,000 PIE. Riesel takes a moment to calculate his finances while processing the high cost of living in this capital. Suddenly, he demands 70,000 PIE for the diamond right now, causing the merchant to jump in surprise. The old man stammers the large sum aloud, his face pale with shock at such a bold request. Riesel clarifies that he wants to avoid being labeled a fraud once artificial diamonds become more common knowledge. The shopkeeper worries that accepting the valuable gem for such a low price might bring him divine misfortune. Proposing 70,000 PI as a down payment, Riesel finally reaches an agreement with the cautious merchant. They conclude the transaction with a firm handshake, marking Riesel's first successful business deal in this world. As the young mage departs, the grateful shopkeeper waves and warmly invites him to return to the shop. With money in hand, Riesel sets out to explore the city and find a place to stay for the night. Clutching the heavy bag of coins, Riesel reflects on the time it took to secure his initial funding. Walking through the city, he contemplates the primitive state of this world's alchemy and the different monetary values. He eventually arrives at Marie's Inn, noting the 7,000 PI nightly rate displayed on the building's exterior. Entering the quiet establishment, he passes through the common area toward the stairs to find his designated room. Collapsing onto the bed, Riesel exhales a deep sigh while acknowledging the absurdity of the location he now inhabits. Staring up at the ceiling, he decides it is finally time to organize his thoughts and analyze his situation. He recalls the shopkeeper's ignorance, realizing the magical civilization here is significantly less advanced than his original world. Suddenly sitting up, a wave of realization hits him as he considers that he truly is in another world. To verify the local environment, he activates his quantum motion analysis magic, projecting a glowing circle onto the floor. Closely observing the holographic grid, he begins to scan the fundamental properties of the reality surrounding his current location. He is shocked to find foreign materials and physical laws that diverge sharply from the logic of his home. Reeling from the confirmation, Riesel falls back onto the mattress, overwhelmed by the gravity of his new scientific findings. He reasons that if the goddess was genuine, even the king's decision to exile him was likely an error. Pondering his next move, he wonders if defeating the demon king is truly the key to satisfying the goddess. However, a fundamental question arises in his mind as he realizes he has no idea what a demon king is. He envisions the demonic race, questioning if they truly maintain a monarchy since such things never existed where he lived. Shifting onto his side, he contemplates whether the concept of a demon is restricted solely to his personal world experience. He considers the possibility of intelligent demonic beings who govern themselves through a structured and sophisticated royal political system. Looking deeper into the mystery, Rizal wonders if the demons of this world are actually not inherently evil at all. Ultimately, he laments his lack of information, while realizing that his exile prevents him from receiving human assistance. Sitting on his bed, Rizal decides his next objective is to locate and meet the Demon King. Standing up quickly, he resolves himself to begin his journey immediately. He wonders if the advanced magic from his original world will function correctly in this primitive environment. Activating his storage magic, a glowing holographic interface appears as he accesses his hidden spatial inventory. He successfully retrieves a discovery satellite equipped with a built-in printer to assist with long-range navigation. After confirming the device operates perfectly, he plans to sleep while the satellite maps the entire region. Night passes quickly as birds fly over the morning city, while the young mage remains deeply asleep. Waking up as the sun rises, he realizes he slept far longer than intended due to exhaustion. Checking the satellite's output, he finds a perfectly detailed map of the surrounding territory waiting for him. While storing the scroll, he suddenly senses a hostile presence and decides to investigate using detection spells. Utilizing high search magic, he visualizes multiple cloaked figures lurking suspiciously near his current location. Identifying 5 individuals, Rizal prepares a specialized spell to intercept their private magical audio communications from afar. Overhearing their conversation, he confirms they are indeed assassins sent by the king to eliminate him. Floorboards creak softly as he steps out into the hallway to face his hidden stalkers. High above, masked scouts track his movement from the safety of the sloped rooftops. The assassins identify him as the failed hero who was publicly exiled from the palace yesterday. Walking down a quiet alleyway, Rizal acknowledges that the king has officially become his primary enemy. Meanwhile, the leader of the group confirms that all team members are now in their final positions. They recap the mission details, intending to assassinate the target and bring his head back as proof. Looking up, he identifies the surrounding assassins and readies himself for the inevitable fight. With a sly smirk, Rizal decides to utilize the current situation for his own advantage while planning his next move. High above, the assassins receive confirmation that the area is clear and prepare to execute their lethal mission. Without warning, a hidden assailant fires a silent blowgun dart aimed directly at the unsuspecting young mage. The projectile strikes his neck with sudden force, signaling the beginning of the kingdom's ruthless assassination attempt. Analyzing the toxin, he realizes it is a fast-acting sedative meant to induce sleep within mere seconds. Rizal collapses to the ground, leading the gloating assassins to believe their mission has reached a successful conclusion. Suddenly, he vanishes and reappears instantly amidst the group, activating a powerful and blinding lightning-based offensive spell. Savage bolts of electricity arc through the narrow alleyway, striking the stunned assassins before they can even react. The cloaked figures fall unconscious, while Rizal prepares another spell to ensure they remain asleep for a while. Reaching into his spatial storage once again, he searches for a specific item to help with his deceptive plan. He retrieves a multifunctional stem cell, an experimental item originally intended for creating high-level combat clones. Activating his differentiation magic, he begins to craft a perfect physical duplicate of himself to serve as a decoy. He meticulously prepares the clone by dressing it and inflicting a fake wound to match the blowgun attack. Finishing the setup, he leaves the counterfeit corpse surrounded by the defeated assassins to stage his own death. Satisfied with his handiwork, he notes that his automatic restoration magic will complete the illusion without further input. Stretching his weary limbs, Rizal finally turns his attention toward the distant horizon where the Demon King resides. Moments later, one of the assassins begins to groan as he slowly regains consciousness on the cold ground. Confused and disoriented, the recovery group wonders if they were hit by some hidden defensive trap during the ambush. One assassin gasps in sudden realization as he looks around the scene for any sign of their elusive target. In a state of panic, he frantically demands to know what happened to the body of the supposedly dead mage. After the fake body collapses, the assassins confirm that their target is finally and officially dead. One assailant curses the trouble Rizal caused before drawing a sharp blade to claim a grisly trophy. With a swift and brutal stroke, the lead assassin severs the head from the decoy's neck. Ordering his team to move quickly, the leader grabs the head as they vanish into the shadows. Once the area is completely deserted, the real Rizal dispels his invisibility and steps into the light. He watches as his automatic restoration magic begins to dissolve the remains of the discarded clone. Leaving the city behind, Rizal travels across the landscape until the Demon King's dark castle finally appears. Standing before the massive fortress, he observes the imposing architecture under the glow of a full moon. Two armored guards stand watch at the main gate, their spears held firmly against any possible intruders. As Rizal approaches the entrance, the startled sentries shout for him to halt his advance immediately. They cross their long spears to block his path, demanding to know his business at the royal stronghold. Rizal calmly explains that he wishes to speak with the Demon King and asks for a guided tour. The stunned guards remain silent for a long moment, unable to process his casual and absurd request. Outraged, they scream that a human has no right to demand an audience with their supreme leader. He tries to apologize for the sudden visit and politely asks how one makes a formal appointment. Aggressively, they point their blades at his throat and identify him as a summoned hero from his clothing. Rizal admits his origins, but clarifies that he was recently exiled from the human kingdom's palace. The guards react with genuine shock upon hearing that a hero was cast out by his own people. He further reveals that the human king even sent assassins to finish him off earlier that morning. Smirking, he suggests that his circumstances make him the perfect candidate to join the Demon King's side. One guard shouts about summoned heroes who claim the enemy's enemy is a friend to deceive them. Noticing the guard's deep suspicion, Rizal realizes that others have already tried this exact infiltration method before. He briefly considers using brainwashing magic, but quickly dismisses the idea to maintain a better first impression. Deciding on a different approach, he raises a finger and calmly tells the guards he will change his query. He points directly toward a high tower, noting the faint presence of a weak barrier protecting the peak. The guards react with immense fury, insulted that he would belittle the Demon King's supreme and absolute magical defense. Seizing the moment, Rizal thanks them for confirming the tower is indeed the location of the main core. Challenging him to prove his worth, the lead guard dares the human to try penetrating such an impenetrable wall. With a playful wink and a knowing smile, Rizal simply tells them he understands and readies his next spell. A massive, intricate magic circle erupts beneath his feet as he prepares to bypass the castle's outer defenses. Bidding them a casual farewell, Rizal begins to dematerialize into glowing digital fragments right before their eyes. The two guards can only watch in absolute terror as their captive literally vanishes into thin air. Swirling rings of light encircle his body, completing the complex teleportation process through the castle's restricted interior space. Left behind in the empty courtyard, the stunned sentries stammer in confusion about what just occurred before them. Streaks of white magical energy shoot upward through the night sky, piercing through the moonlit clouds above. Within the stream of data, Rizal's silhouette remains calm as he traverses the spatial dimensions toward his target. Maintaining his focus, he prepares to rematerialize inside the inner sanctum of the demon's royal palace. His boots click softly against the cold stone floor as he finally lands inside the Demon King's private chambers. Narrowing his eyes, he surveys the grand, shadowed room to locate the person he traveled so far to see. Rizal stands tall before a mysterious, caped figure, marking the beginning of his true encounter with the Demon King. The Demon King girl stands up from her throne, pointing at Rizal while demanding to know his identity. Still visibly shaken, she stammers in disbelief that a mere human has breached her private sanctuary so easily. Rizal silently assesses her power, noting her mana is far superior to the guards he encountered outside earlier. She asks frantically how he bypassed the high-level barrier specifically designed to block all spatial teleportation magic. Rizal bluntly explains that her barrier was far too fragile to stop his own advanced traversal techniques. He shifts the conversation by casually asking the small, horned girl if she is the actual Demon King. She confirms her title while rubbing her head in confusion, wondering why this strange human has appeared. Rizal offers a polite apology for slipping through her defensive perimeter without any prior formal invitation or notice. He explains that he purposely avoided destroying the barrier because he respected the hard work put into it. The Demon King girl remains on high alert, watching Rizal's every movement with growing suspicion and caution. She narrows her eyes, internally questioning his true motives and whether he poses an immediate lethal threat. Keeping his demeanor calm, Rizal prepares to explain his complicated history and the reason for his visit. He introduces himself as Rizal, a summoned hero cast out by humans and now siding with no one. Looking her directly in the eye, he maintains a serious expression during his unconventional and blunt diplomatic introduction. He asks her once more for confirmation of her status as the supreme leader of the demonic races. Outraged by his request for an interview, she erupts in anger and prepares a devastating magical counterattack. Rizal realizes his attempt at civil communication failed as a massive magic circle illuminates the dark throne room. She unleashes a violent blast of dark energy, which Rizal effortlessly counters with a simple flick of his finger. Amidst the magical explosion, Rizal laments the fact that he has no evidence of his royal dismissal. Emerging from the smoke with a fierce grin, the Demon King finally acknowledges Rizal's unexpected and impressive strength. Rizal ponders his next move as the magical smoke from the Demon King's attack clears around him. Suddenly, the sound of rushing footsteps echoes through the throne room, drawing his attention to the doorway. Two elite demon guards burst in, frantically asking their queen if she has sustained any injuries. The male guard stares at Rizal in pure shock, unable to believe a human breached their inner sanctum. The Demon King warns her knights that her most powerful attacks were completely ineffective against this mysterious intruder. Rizal realizes that proving his peaceful intentions is impossible, and killing the guards would only spark a war. He realizes his display of power might seem like a threat, yet he remains incredibly calm and steady. As the knights prepare to strike, he decides to demonstrate a power that will force them to negotiate. Raising his hand, Rizal decides to demonstrate his superiority to force the demons into a peaceful conversation. A sharp magical blade strikes with terrifying speed. The demon knights are decapitated in a single stroke. Terrified by the sheer scale of his power, the young Demon King cries out in visible desperation. Rizal manifests a circle to reverse the lethal damage. Their heads are seamlessly fused back onto their bodies. Blinking in confusion, the two knights touch their necks, while wondering if their deaths were just a dream. The Demon King screams in disbelief at the resurrection, while Rizal calmly explains he never intended to kill. Letting out a weary sigh, the former hero finds the constant drama of this world increasingly exhausting. The guards remain paralyzed with fear, their faces pale as they realize the monster standing before them. Rizal casually remarks that losing one's head should only be a minor inconvenience for a high-level warrior. Pointing a finger, the Demon King shrieks that living without a head is absolutely impossible in this world. Rizal scratches his head, suggesting his administrative duties in his old world made him rusty with magic. Enraged, the female knight Selena defends her queen's title, shouting that her strength is absolute. Intervening calmly, the young Demon King tells her subordinate to stand down despite the bizarre situation. She acknowledges that Rizal's power defies their common sense, and that further resistance is entirely futile. Standing firm, Rizal reiterates his strange goal of interviewing the demon monarch for his personal research. Stepping forward, the Demon King stares at him intently, before deciding to entertain his unusual request. With a confident smirk, she grants him permission to ask whatever he desires without further delay. Rizal offers a polite smile, expressing his gratitude that she has finally agreed to speak peacefully. However, Selena remains deeply skeptical, loudly questioning if this mysterious human is truly a potential ally. Dismissing the concern, the queen boldly declares she will simply face the consequences if things go wrong. The worried guards watch in silence as their leader chooses to bet on this slim hope. Softening her expression, the Demon King admits she was wrong to strike first against such a man. Consequently, she instructs her loyal knights to wait outside while she speaks with the visitor alone. Watching them prepare to leave, Rizal lets out a breath of relief as the tension finally dissipates. The two demon guards exchange a final, uncertain glance before resigning themselves to their queen's orders. Respectfully bowing, they exit the chamber and leave the former hero alone with the demonic ruler. The heavy doors slam shut with a loud boom, echoing throughout the now empty and silent throne room. Settling back into her seat, the Demon King prepares to listen to the questions he traveled for. Rizal thanks her once more before starting his inquiry into the escalating conflict between their two races. Leaning her head on her hand, she reveals that everything humans believe about demons is completely wrong. Mao leans on her hand, explaining to Rizal that the common human perception of demons is entirely wrong. She further clarifies that demon forces have been slowly declining for centuries under the weight of human oppression. To provide solid proof of her claims, she abruptly tosses a rolled parchment toward the seated young mage. Rizal catches the document midair, curiously asking what important information this specific scroll might actually contain within. Identifying the document as a formal treaty, Rizal notes a trace of the human king's distinct magical aura. After receiving casual permission to investigate the scroll, he prepares to examine the legal details of their agreement. Carefully unfurling the ancient parchment, Rizal begins reading the terms that have dictated their long-standing racial relations. He gasps in horror at the incredibly one-sided clauses that grant humans total immunity while heavily punishing demons. Mao reveals a grim historical image of a previous demon leader being brutally slain by a past hero. She explains that the demon race surrendered to these humiliating conditions because they simply could not defeat him. Clenching her fist in silent resentment, she admits she was forced to sign to ensure her people's survival. Rizal processes this tragic revelation, his mind spinning with questions about the true purpose of his own summoning. He wonders why the goddess would bother bringing new heroes if the current ones are already overwhelmingly powerful. Turning back toward the throne, he tells the Demon Queen that he has one more critical question left. Mao looks at him expectantly, waiting to hear what final mystery the former hero wishes to solve now. Rizal returns the scroll as she explains that the scheduled time for the treaty's mandatory renewal is fast approaching. With a cold and knowing smirk, the demon monarch tells Rizal that his exile was actually quite fortunate. Bewildered by her words, he repeats her claim while trying to understand how his betrayal could be lucky. Suddenly, the atmosphere turns heavy as she reveals the dark truth that the heroes were summoned as sacrifices. Rizal freezes in absolute shock as the horrific reality of the human kingdom's grand plan is finally unveiled. Under the light of the full moon, the Demon King questions the nature of the hero's summoning. Rizal sweats in disbelief, struggling to process the horrific revelation that he was brought here as a sacrifice. Sensing his distress, the demon monarch watches silently as he asks her to explain the situation further. She begins recounting the dark history of summoning that stretches back 600 years to its inception. In those ancient times, the summoned heroes were remarkably weak and easily defeated by the four heavenly kings. Disappointed by these failures, the human leadership pressured the goddess to provide more powerful tools of war. Rizal sighs, deducing that the humans began synthesizing the fallen heroes into something far more monstrous. He contemplates whether such high-level magical engineering could truly be the work of mortal humans alone. Abruptly, he asks if the goddess herself was responsible for creating the artifacts used in these experiments. The Demon King looks away solemnly, confirming his theory as she reveals the extent of divine interference. She explains that these new synthetic heroes possessed power far exceeding any demon lord from previous generations. Humans continued the cycle of summoning and training heroes against monsters until their growth hit a limit. Through this relentless process of absorption, the current generation of heroes reached an unprecedented level of strength. The greedy king laughs mockingly, claiming his military might is supreme while treating human lives like disposable weapons. Exhaling a weary breath, the demon monarch admits this is the complete truth behind the heroic legend. Rizal realizes that if these claims are true, both the goddess and the synthetic heroes are his enemies. Refusing to owe anything to those who sacrifice their allies, he hardens his gaze with newfound resolve. Standing up suddenly, he informs the Demon Queen that he needs to verify the details of her story. Startled by his sudden movement, she gives her hesitant permission for him to proceed with his investigation. As he activates his detection magic, she wonders nervously what the former hero plans to do next. Rizal examines a detailed magical scan of the royal palace, noting the corrupted, non-human state of the souls within. Confirming the Demon Queen's dark tale, he detects clear traces of synthetic tools and heroes lurking in the capital. Startled, she frantically demands to know how he could possibly investigate the palace from such a great distance. Slumping over in her chair, the young monarch is left reeling by the existence of such advanced analysis artifacts. She questions why he bothered coming to interview her at all, if he possessed such incredible searching capabilities. Rizal settles into a chair, admitting that her testimony about the synthetic heroes was the necessary catalyst for his investigation. Narrowing his eyes, he continues to explain the logic behind his strategic approach to uncovering the kingdom's hidden secrets. He confesses that being a sacrificial pawn was never part of his plan, and offers her his sincere gratitude. Blushing slightly, the demon girl tries to act indifferent, while acknowledging that sharing the information wasn't a major burden. Deep in thought, Rizal realizes he must create a situation dire enough to force the goddess into a personal confrontation. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes him, and his eyes widen as a perfect plan for his return finally takes shape. Abruptly calling out to the startled demon monarch, he prepares to propose a daring and mutually beneficial alliance. With a devious smirk playing on his lips, Rizal clasps his hands together while plotting their next major move. He looks her directly in the eye and asks if she truly desires to defeat the synthetic hero personally. Gripping her skirt with trembling fists, she recalls the humiliation of her ancestors and the burden of the unfair treaty. Her eyes burn with a fierce determination as she firmly declares her desire to reclaim her people's stolen pride. A satisfied grin spreads across his face as he confirms that their goals are now officially and perfectly aligned. Stepping forward, Rizal boldly offers to personally train her until she possesses the strength to crush any synthetic hero. Overwhelmed by his generosity, she fidgets nervously and wonders why a stranger would go to such lengths for her. He explains that defeating the hero is the only way to drag the elusive goddess out for a final negotiation. Mao acknowledges that Rizal also gains a significant advantage from their collaboration. Consequently, she questions the specific reasoning behind his confidence in her untapped potential. Furthermore, she notes that reaching the necessary power level won't be a simple task. Rizal encourages her by explaining that identifying her weaknesses is the key to victory. Eventually, she resolves to trust his judgment and formally accepts his offer of help. Observing her resolve, he smirks while acknowledging her readiness for the coming trials. Extending her hand, the queen officially requests his guidance for the upcoming struggle. They finalize the pact with a handshake, while he warns of his strict training methods. Right then, she begins to regret her decision, as the weight of his words sinks in. After regaining her composure, she asks for a suitable location to begin their practice. He suggests a mock battle first to accurately assess her current physical and magical limits. In response, she points out an ancient coliseum located several kilometers from the castle. While checking his digital map, Rizal decides to bypass the long travel distance immediately. Instructing her to hold on tight, he prepares an advanced high-speed transport spell. Shocked, she has no time to react before reality begins shifting around them. Suddenly, digital fragments envelop them as they plunge into a chaotic spatial distortion. She screams in terror while being dragged through the blinding light of the portal. Meanwhile, a massive streak of magical energy shoots across the moonlit sky. They arrive at a desolate arena, providing a grand stage for their training session. Gasping for air, the disoriented Demon Queen struggles to regain her balance after the trip. Mao collapses on the floor, feeling severely nauseous from Rizal's overwhelming teleportation magic. Gradually regaining her composure, she wipes her face and curiously inquires about his mysterious magic tool. He reveals it's an illusion barrier designed to make their training look like normal exercise from outside. Smirking, Rizal reassures her that no one will witness her potential defeat during their intense practice session. Mao growls in annoyance, finding his brand of consideration incredibly insulting to her pride as a monarch. Declaring that preparations are complete, Rizal begins walking to his starting position to end the idle chatter. Stealing her resolve, the Demon Queen stands on shaky legs and prepares herself for the coming ordeal. Facing each other in the center of the vast Colosseum, she vows to attack with her full power. With both combatants ready, they officially signal the start of their first high-stakes mock battle. Rizal contemplates whether he should block her attacks or simply divert them with his superior techniques. The vast arena falls silent as Mao takes her stance, waiting for her elusive opponent to strike. Suddenly, she gasps in pure shock upon realizing that Rizal has completely vanished from her sight. Detecting scattered mana in the air, she focuses her senses to track his movement through the mist. Her eyes dart to the side as she catches a faint glimmer of movement in the distance. Trusting her instincts, Mao lunges forward with a powerful strike, shouting that she has finally found him. Abruptly, a small object strikes her forehead with a comical sound, leaving her stunned and confused. To her utter disbelief, the weapon used against her is revealed to be a harmless, bouncing sponge ball. Rubbing her head in pain, she complains that the impact felt surprisingly heavy despite the ball's soft material. Rizal explains that she must learn to dodge these balls before they disappear after 3 short seconds. Trembling with frustration, Mao struggles to comprehend the absurdity of using thought magic for such menial training. Rizal casually mentions he is only using basic physical enhancement, leaving the Demon Queen completely speechless. Furious at his arrogance, she clenches her fist while the former hero laughs mockingly at her struggle. With her pride on the line, she vows to dodge the next attack no matter what. Meanwhile, Rizal maintains a confident smirk, clearly enjoying the progression of their high-stakes training session. Despite her resolve, another ball strikes her head, prompting a cry of pain from the frustrated monarch. The sun begins to set over the ancient Colosseum as their intense mock battle continues unabated. Determined to improve, she focuses her mana to create a glowing defensive barrier between her palms. She breathes a sigh of relief, realizing she has finally developed the ability to block his strikes. Praising her progress, Rizal instructs her to stop holding back and fire her magic with full intent. She analyzes his incredible speed, suspecting he might be slowing down to match her current level. Taking a deep breath, she decides to sacrifice raw power to increase her accuracy for the next strike. Rizal's eyes narrow as he detects the shift in her magical signature and prepares for the impact. Mao manifests several colossal magic circles, preparing her devastating flame cannon, while Rizal readies a simple barrier. She screams for her spell to find its mark as the arena is engulfed in blinding light. A massive explosion of magical energy erupts, sending shockwaves through the stands of the deserted Colosseum. Gasping for air, she wears a triumphant grin while asking him how he liked her ultimate attack. Fragments of shattered magical energy rain down onto the stone floor as the smoke begins to clear. Rizal stares in genuine disbelief, realizing that his defensive barrier has been completely destroyed for the first time. Looking over the devastated arena, she celebrates her success with a shout of joy amidst the lingering clouds. Finally reaching her limit, the exhausted queen collapses onto the ground as the barrier fragments vanish. Rizal reflects on the massive mana gap Mao managed to close through sheer determination during their initial clash. Offering his gloved hand to the exhausted demon monarch, he prepares to acknowledge her surprisingly impressive performance. Grabbing his hand with a triumphant grin, she celebrates her success in finally landing a solid magical strike. Consequently, the former hero acknowledges her hidden potential, envisioning the terrifying power she might one day wield. Suddenly, the panting queen begs for a reprieve, unable to keep up with his relentless pace and demands. While they take a brief and much-needed break, a simple cup of coffee symbolizes their temporary ceasefire. After regaining her breath, she curiously inquires about the specific nature of the barrier he intends to use. Rizal explains his plan to manifest a defensive wall, challenging her to strike it with her absolute maximum output. Worried about collateral damage, she hesitates until he reassures her that the surrounding landscape will remain completely safe. Then, a brilliant magic circle erupts at his feet as he begins to construct a specialized energy negation field. High above the Colosseum, the massive structure of the new barrier starts to take shape under the night sky. With a confident expression, Rizal declares that this unique field has the specialized capability to absorb any incoming assault. Recognizing his seemingly infinite capabilities, the Queen offers a strained smile and prepares her final, most powerful spell. Unleashing her true demonic authority, she manifests a colossal magic array while vowing to test his absolute limits. A massive beam of dark energy roars across the arena toward the young mage standing stoically inside his cube. To her total astonishment, the violent spell is effortlessly sucked into a tiny spatial rift before reaching its target. Following the sudden silence, the remaining traces of her ultimate attack vanish into the void with a soft sound. Rizal stares at her in shock, genuinely asking if that underwhelming display was truly her maximum magical capacity. Feeling insulted and embarrassed, she loudly apologizes for her performance, while venting her immense frustration at his reaction. As she sulks over her failure, Rizal calmly notes that he has officially discovered something important about her power. Meltia sulks and pouts while asking Rizal what exactly he discovered about her during their battle. Realizing his rudeness, Rizal apologizes for never asking her name, while she notes his scatterbrained nature. She formally introduces herself as Meltia, Queen of the Demon Kingdom, officially requesting his assistance again. Rizal clears his throat, telling Meltia there is no need for such formalities between partners during training. Consequently, he explains that while her raw mana is high, her magic circle construction technique is immature. Using a water tank analogy, he illustrates the relationship between mana capacity, output, and precise control. Furthermore, he shows how advanced techniques allow one to defeat monsters far beyond their basic power levels. Rizal then announces that her first lesson will involve mastering the complex concept of 3D magic circles. Seeing her confusion, he sighs over the recurring culture shock regarding this world's primitive magical knowledge. He provides a diagram comparing standard 2D circles to 3D ones, which offer nearly infinite power potential. Meltia is stunned by this revelation, admitting she never even considered the possibility of such a system. Still skeptical, she wonders aloud how a mortal could ever hope to handle such hyperdimensional structures. Rizal counters that these methods were established through rigorous training, prompting a frustrated outburst from the Queen. Regaining her focus, Meltia looks him in the eye to ask a very serious and lingering question. She inquires why he is training her instead of simply defeating the heroes himself to find the goddess. He explains his first reason is simply to repay her for providing such valuable and truthful information. Then, Rizal reveals his second motive. He wants her to become his comrade in his original world. Shocked by his proposal, Meltia stands frozen while asking him to clarify the meaning behind his words. He confesses that powerful enemies exist in his home world that he cannot possibly defeat on his own. As he prepares to move, Rizal confirms that the recent mock battle has solidified his final decision. Rizal confidently declares his certainty that Meltia is the ideal partner for his upcoming mission. Although hesitant due to her royal duties, the Demon Queen finally agrees to join his journey. Refusing to simply take favors, Meltia asserts her desire to reciprocate by offering a specific request. She reveals the tragic situation of her younger sister, who was once strong, but fell mysteriously ill. Consequently, she asks Rizal to examine her sibling, while he considers the nature of this strange sickness. He agrees to attempt a diagnosis without making promises, prompting a joyous and relieved reaction from Meltia. Eager to return, she urges haste, while Rizal teasingly warns her about the risks of teleportation sickness. A brief transition follows as they depart from the arena to head toward the royal demonic palace. The majestic demon castle stands tall under the moon as the group arrives at their final destination. Inside her private chambers, the younger sister Sissel reads quietly until a spatial portal suddenly erupts nearby. Meltia and Rizal emerge from the distortion, startling Sissel as her sister attempts to calm her panic. Confused by the intrusion, Sissel questions how they bypassed her barriers and demands to know Rizal's identity. Meltia boastfully introduces Rizel as an otherworldly powerhouse, capable of shattering any magical defense with total ease. Feeling comically embarrassed by the grand introduction, Rizel watches as Sissel looks on with growing curiosity. Then, Meltia explains the true reason for his visit, expressing hope that he can cure Sissel's condition. Sissel gazes up with wide eyes, questioning if this mysterious human truly possesses the ability to heal her. Reassuring her sister with a warm smile, Meltia insists that finding the cause is progress enough. Respecting her sister's judgment, the young girl finally agrees to undergo Rizel's specialized magical medical examination. Rizel observes the deep bond between the siblings, finding their mutual trust and affection truly heartwarming. Finally, Meltia excitedly orders the checkup to begin immediately as the young mage prepares his analysis spells. Rizel gently takes Cecil's hand to begin his examination, promising that the process will be over quickly. Meltia reacts with total confusion when he diagnoses her sister with a condition called mana vein hardening. He elaborates on the symptoms, explaining that high viscosity in mana causes the body's internal circuits to clog. Cecil asks with visible concern if her mysterious condition is truly a life-threatening or dangerous ailment. Reassuring her, Rizel presents a futuristic capsule containing nanoviruses designed to perfectly liquefy her stagnant mana. He carefully pours the experimental medicine into her hand, instructing the nervous young girl to swallow it. Looking back at her sister for guidance, Sissel remains hesitant about consuming the strange, otherworldly medicine. Meltia offers a supportive smile, encouraging her sibling to trust the human and take the first step toward recovery. Taking a deep breath, the young demon girl finally swallows the capsule, while Rizel watches the reaction closely. The room remains silent as everyone waits for the potent drug to take effect within her magical circulatory system. After a long moment, she exhales a soft sigh of relief, though her physical condition remains largely unchanged. Meltia frantically asks if she feels any better, yet Sissel admits that she doesn't feel anything happening yet. Outraged, Meltia begins screaming at Rizel until he explains that the medicine normally takes several days to work. To speed up the process, Rizel suggests temporarily accelerating her internal time to force an immediate recovery. He touches her forehead, activating a specialized chronomancy spell that causes a brilliant light to envelop her. Suddenly, Sissel gasps in amazement as a powerful and smooth flow of mana finally returns to her limbs. Meltia stammers in shock, while her sister joyfully confirms that the blockage has been completely and utterly cleared. The sisters embrace tearfully in celebration, while Rizel watches with a satisfied and quiet smile on his face. Preparing to test her restored powers, Cecil readies her hands while Meltia watches her with intense anticipation. A magical glow surrounds a nearby vessel as she begins to demonstrate her newly returned control over mana. Cecil successfully transmutes a metallic vase back into its base minerals, impressing both Rizel and Meltia. Following this success, Rizel observes that she can now wield high-level spells with remarkable and effortless precision. Suddenly, Cecil embraces her sister, while joyfully confessing that magic has never felt this natural before. Meanwhile, Meltia weeps with relief as her sister's long-term illness finally vanishes, marking a major turning point. Rizel explains the science behind the cure, identifying the substance responsible for her previously clogged internal mana. He further notes that distributing this medicine to the demon army could provide a massive and instantaneous advantage. Hearing this, Meltia urgently inquires if such a potent drug can actually be mass-produced in their world. However, Rizel sheepishly admits the medicine is actually just old inventory intended for charity in his home world. Despite its origins, Meltia maintains a fierce expression, determined to utilize every resource to protect her people. Offering a gentle smile, the young mage expresses his genuine happiness at finally being truly useful here. Shortly after, Sissel curiously asks Rizel about his proposal to have her older sister join his party. Sissel solemnly explains that such an arrangement would be difficult due to her sister's royal status. Furthermore, she emphasizes that Meltia is the most powerful and trusted leader within the entire demonic realm today. Rizel sighs in understanding, acknowledging the heavy weight of the responsibilities the Demon Queen currently carries. Surprisingly, Sissel adds that she won't interfere if Meltia truly desires to travel with him instead. With a bright smile, she vows to handle the kingdom's affairs personally in her sister's absence. Rizal finds her sudden growth and reliability deeply heartening as he considers their next diplomatic move. Switching topics, he asks the younger sister if she possesses any actual hands-on experience in royal politics. Sissel blushes comically, while sheepishly admitting that she has absolutely no experience in managing governmental affairs. Sipping his tea calmly, Rizal mentions that he has a specialized tool that can solve that problem. Rizal places an educational simulator on the table, explaining its function to the curious demon sisters. Meltia stares at the strange device with visible skepticism, while Rizal maintains his calm and professional demeanor. Bursting into the room with excitement, Meltia announces that she has successfully completed her urgent distribution task. Sissel warmly welcomes her older sister back, while curiously asking about the results of her sudden mission. Approaching Meltia, Rizal places a hand on her forehead, noting that she returned at the perfect moment. He calmly explains that he needs to extract a portion of her memories for the next step. A moment of silence follows as Meltia processes the invasive-sounding request with a look of pure confusion. Suddenly, she erupts in surprise, loudly questioning the safety and necessity of extracting her personal life experiences. Rizal quickly reassures her that the process only copies her data and won't cause any actual memory loss. Handing her a small crystal shard, he instructs the Demon Queen to wear it for the transfer process. He proceeds to carefully insert the memory crystal into the simulator, while the sisters watch with intense fascination. Meltia remains in awe of his advanced tools, which Rizal attributes to the significant gap in their civilizations. Stealing her resolve, the Demon Queen declares her readiness to proceed with the unconventional and mysterious procedure. Rizal initiates the process, meticulously confirming the connection between the memory crystal and the recording device. Brimming with magical energy, a brilliant pillar of light envelops Meltia as the memory import officially begins. Sissel watches the intense phenomenon with a mixture of worry and anticipation while the transfer reaches its peak. A digital message suddenly appears, confirming the successful creation of the specialized Demon Realm Governance Simulator. Informing her that the setup is complete, Rizal encourages Meltia to test the new training tool immediately. He instructs Sissel to press the central red magic stone to activate the immersive political leadership simulation. Chibi-style graphics flicker to life on the screen, signaling the official start of the younger sister's royal training. Meltia and Sissel examine a scenario about a past famine within the newly activated governance simulator. Initially, Sissel struggles to improve the situation, leading Meltia to watch her efforts with a smug expression. To assist, Meltia suggests changing the royal ordinance to the second option to see how the simulation reacts. Choosing the recommended path leads to a successful outcome, causing Sissel to cheer happily at the correct result. Meltia proudly reveals that she actually implemented that exact policy during her own rule in the real world. While Sissel praises her sister's wisdom, Rizal observes their interaction and notes the effectiveness of the training tool. Standing up, Rizal emphasizes that such simulations provide the essential practical experience needed for future leadership roles. Heartened by the lesson, Sissel looks toward her sister and vows to work harder for the kingdom's future. Meltia is momentarily taken aback by her younger sister's sudden and intense display of resolve and responsibility. With a warm smile, the queen pats Sissel's head and confirms that she is fully counting on her support. A bright light signals a transition in time as the scene shifts forward to the following morning's session. Rizal and Meltia sit together in her private chambers, prepared to begin the next phase of her training. He announces that the second stage of her refinement will focus on finally surpassing the synthetic hero's power. Looking around her room, Meltia hesitantly questions if such an important exercise should really take place here. Rizal ignores her concern and presents a cute, vase-shaped device intended to serve as a specialized training catalyst. He explains that the machine depletes mana from the air, forcing any living being's internal energy to leak out. Meltia becomes visibly anxious, asking if such a drastic reduction in mana poses any actual danger to her health. He bluntly admits that extreme mana deficiency can lead to death, causing the queen to scream in absolute terror. Chuckling at her dramatic reaction, Rizal reassures her that things rarely escalate to such a lethal level during practice. Finally, he explains that the exercise requires her to manually control her mana to prevent it from escaping. Melcia boasts with absolute confidence, claiming the first stage of her training will be a total breeze. However, she quickly falters as the candle's flame begins to flicker and weaken under her shaky control. Gritting her teeth, the demon monarch groans while struggling to maintain the delicate flow of her massive mana. Rizal watches silently as her frustration boils over while she sweats profusely under the intense mental pressure. Consequently, she shoots him an irritated glare, feeling comically insulted by his calm and seemingly effortless demeanor. Attempting a precision strike, Melcia focuses every ounce of her concentration into a tiny spark at her fingertip. Unfortunately, her efforts end in a pathetic puff of smoke, leaving the queen feeling utterly humiliated and defeated. Collapsing onto the table, she wails in despair about her complete lack of talent for such delicate magic. Rizal leans in with a smug grin, provocatively asking if the great demon king is really quitting so soon. She buries her face in her arms, sobbing comically over the sheer difficulty of the task before her. Suddenly, she looks up with tear-filled eyes and declares she will keep trying until she finally succeeds. A satisfied smirk plays across Rizal's face as he acknowledges her admirable and fierce demonic fighting spirit. With renewed vigor, she throws her hands up and shouts a battle cry to signal her second attempt. Right then, a sudden and polite knock on the door interrupts the intense atmosphere of the private chamber. Sissel enters the room carrying a tray of hot tea, offering the pair a much-needed break from training. Rizal quickly signals for silence, with a finger to his lips to avoid breaking Melcia's fragile concentration. He carefully adjusts the crystal on her forehead, noting that her focus is reaching a critical point now. Once again, the queen enters a state of deep concentration while attempting to manipulate the tiny candle flame. Abruptly, Melcia screams and clutches her head in pain while her sister and Rizal watch with concern. Following her outburst, Rizal turns his head in surprise as a new development occurs within the quiet chamber. Melcia lands energetically after finishing her task, while Rizal waits patiently with a tray of hot tea. She pauses for a moment, processing the next steps of her unconventional training under the young mage's guidance. Resuming her seat, the Demon Queen smiles broadly as she prepares to tackle the delicate mana control exercise. While the group shares a quiet moment over tea, Melcia focuses her intent on the small candle before her. The flame flickers intensely, reflecting the queen's struggle to maintain a perfectly stable flow of her vast mana. Everyone watches in awe as she stabilizes the magical fire with newfound and impressive precision. Overjoyed by her successful mastery, Melcia cheers and embraces her sister while celebrating this major magical milestone together. Rizal acknowledges her impressive growth, noting that her current level of control is exceptional for a first-time trainee. The candle burns with a brilliant and unwavering light, serving as proof of her successful refinement of basic techniques. Feeling completely drained, Melcia slumps over the table while Rizal discusses transitioning to more advanced combat magic training. He suggests heading to the Colosseum next, prompting Cecil to excitedly request permission to observe the upcoming session. Under the moonlit sky, the group arrives at the Grand Arena to begin the next intensive phase. Rizal activates the vase-shaped device, which begins pulling mana from the surrounding air to create a challenging environment. Melcia focuses deeply, preparing to manifest her internal energy despite the vacuum effect created by the training catalyst. A massive mana orb roars to life, demonstrating her rapidly increasing power and much improved control. Observing the successful manifestation, Rizal grants her a passing grade while looking on with a satisfied, calm expression. Glowing mana droplets float beautifully through the night air, proving her ability to manipulate magic in three-dimensional space. Proud of her accomplishment, the queen clenches her fist and celebrates the successful execution of the complex spell. Rizal deactivates the device as Melcia begins to question the underlying purpose of these increasingly difficult magical tests. With a knowing smile, he praises her sharp intuition and prepares to reveal the true goal of her training. Rizal announces today's lesson, while Melcia watches him with a mixture of nervous excitement and anticipation. He activates a magic circle beneath his feet, manifesting a glowing ring of complex spatial energy. Suddenly, a blocky and solid wall of translucent magic materializes directly in front of the young mage. He identifies the structure as a three-dimensional magic circle, showcasing its superior physical presence and density. Melsha gazes at the artifact in pure awe, realizing the sheer complexity of such advanced magical engineering. Furthermore, he explains that these constructs are formed by overlapping several basic circles into multi-layered magic. However, he warns that building them piece by piece during live combat is far too slow and risky. With a challenging smile, he asks the Demon Queen if she is truly ready to attempt the feat. Melsha flashes a confident and sharp grin, declaring that such a task is child's play for her. Concentrating with all her might, she begins pouring her immense mana into a digital-like magical matrix. Her hands glow within the swirling energy as she meticulously weaves the intricate layers of the spell. Meanwhile, Rizal observes her focus, noting that her construction accuracy and concentration are both absolutely perfect. Success! Melsha cheers triumphantly as the solid barrier stabilizes, while Rizal offers his genuine and quiet praise. Immediately after, he proposes a test to determine the actual defensive strength of her newly created wall. She barely has time to react before a sudden and blinding flash of power erupts before her eyes. A massive explosion rocks the arena, yet the translucent barrier stands firm against the violent impact. Right then, the smoke clears from the impact zone as the silent arena remains held in suspense. Melsha approaches the barrier with trembling hands, still struggling to believe its incredible and absolute durability. To her total shock, she finds the magical construct completely unscathed, without even a single visible scratch. Rizal notes that even basic, multi-layered magic provides protection far beyond the limits of primitive flat circles. Melsha admires the barrier, but Rizal pushes her to aim higher by increasing the magic's complexity. Gradually, the magical architecture becomes more intricate as digital fragments weave together under her steady concentration. Sweat beads on her face as she grinds her teeth, determined to finalize the next level. Triumphant, the Demon Queen stands tall while her completed multidimensional magic circle radiates a brilliant white light. Rizal praises her exceptional progress, acknowledging that she has officially passed the high-level multi-layered magic test. Suddenly, the immense strain of the exercise hits her, and she collapses to the floor in exhaustion. Resting on the cold ground, she gasps for air while Rizal offers to help her recover quickly. Then, Rizal announces that tomorrow's training will move on to more serious, combat-oriented 3D magic applications. Melsha groans while picking herself up, her face a comical mask of fatigue and lingering frustration. Despite her exhaustion, she declares that she won't stop until she has fully mastered these advanced techniques. Rizal smiles slightly, noting that her stubbornness is exactly why she was chosen for this mission. Consequently, he decides to increase the difficulty, while Chibi Melsha panics over the prospect of more work. Transitioning to the next morning, footsteps crunch on the dirt as a new task begins elsewhere. Rizal looks confused as Melsha leads him away, claiming she has an unavoidable and urgent royal duty. She reveals a sprawling farm landscape, identifying it as the critical food supply for the entire Demon Kingdom. Explaining the region's plight, she notes the extreme lack of rainfall that plagues these vital agricultural lands. Rizal listens intently as she explains how every Demon King must use powerful rain magic to survive. Suspecting a hidden motive, Rizal asks if bringing him here was just about seeing the scenery. Melsha sheepishly admits she wants to use her new 3D magic to create a more effective rainfall. He realizes she needs him to supervise her first attempt at using high-level magic for public works. Melsha expresses deep concern about endangering her people if her unstable advanced magic accidentally causes a violent explosion. Rizal praises her proactive dedication, causing the Demon Queen to hide her face in a fit of bashful embarrassment. Regaining her composure, she suggests demonstrating the traditional demonic agricultural magic for his professional evaluation before the upgrade. With Rizal's approval, she flashes a determined grin and prepares to showcase her kingdom's conventional rainmaking ritual. Melsha manifests a standard two-dimensional magic circle, focusing her mana to initiate the basic irrigation process over the fields. Rizal analyzes the spell's structure, noting its standardized capabilities for enhancing crop size and essential nutritional values. Satisfied with the demonstration, he requests to see her original multi-layered version to verify its superior efficiency. He promises to intervene if her technique falters, although Meltia remains comically nervous about attempting the complex construction. Taking a slow, deep breath, the queen centers herself while recalling her training to maintain a steady magical flow. She begins the intricate assembly, her gloved hands radiating a brilliant light as the three-dimensional matrix takes shape. Glowing rings envelop her form while Rizal observes her perfect mana manipulation with a look of genuine approval. Acknowledging her terrifying talent, Rizal praises her perfection and instructs her to finally activate the finished magic circle. Meltia reacts with startled shock to the unexpected compliment, momentarily losing her cool before finalizing the massive spell. Quickly recovering, she channels her immense internal energy through her fingertips into the core of the dimensional construct. Raising her arms toward the heavens, she releases a colossal pillar of light that pierces the dark atmosphere above. The magical energy spreads rapidly throughout the clouds, crackling with the raw power of her newly refined demonic authority. A magnificent dome of light envelops the entire horizon, signaling the successful deployment of her unprecedented agricultural magic. Shortly thereafter, the first droplets of enchanted rain strike the dry earth, ending the long drought for the kingdom. Life-giving water falls steadily upon the thirsty crops, revitalizing the agricultural sector with a dense infusion of mana. The local villagers look up in silent astonishment, witnessing the miraculous rainfall brought forth by their powerful queen. Villagers celebrate the life-giving rain, praising the Demon King for the unprecedented scale of this year's blessing. Relieved by her success, Meltia exhales a weary sigh while finally witnessing the joy of her people. Suddenly, her eyes widen as she turns to face Rizal, seeking his final assessment of her performance. Bashfully looking over her shoulder, the Demon Queen asks if her improved magic met his high standards. Rizal offers a warm smile, declaring her work perfect while predicting a record-shattering harvest for the land. Overcome by physical and emotional exhaustion, Meltia collapses onto the soil she worked so hard to save. Tears of pure joy stream down her face as she whispers her gratitude for this miraculous breakthrough. Observing her rare display of vulnerability, Rizal notes that she never wavered even during their harshest training. Meltia admits that this independence from human food imports is a victory worth more than simple magic. Hearing about their struggle, Rizal reacts with visible shock as the true depth of human cruelty unfolds. He grows furious, learning how humans used food as a weapon to slowly starve the demon race. Clenching his head, Rizal realizes that his arrival barely averted the total collapse of the demon kingdom. Meltia acknowledges that their fortunes have finally shifted now that she has such a powerful ally. Looking toward the horizon, she finds peace, knowing her subjects will no longer suffer from constant hunger. A soft and genuine smile graces the queen's face as she truly connects with her newfound savior. Rizal shares her optimism, stating that he is also eager to see the results of their labor. Comically laughing, Chibi Meltia anticipates the humiliated looks on the human merchants' faces when they lose business. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the bustling human capital, where a sudden economic crisis begins to brew. A merchant trembles in absolute terror while presenting a disastrous report to his demanding and cruel superiors. The official screams in a blind rage as exports to the demon realm plummet by a staggering 95%. Anger explodes in the human palace as someone kicks the floor in a blind, unbridled, and sudden rage. The king bellows in fury, demanding to know the reason for the sudden and catastrophic economic disaster. Trembling with fear, the merchant struggles to find his voice while sweat pours down his pale face. He reports that the demon realm has achieved total food self-sufficiency, rendering human imports completely unnecessary. Fearing for his life, the merchant recalls the grisly fate of his predecessors who failed to appease the monarch. Snarling at the insolence, the king turns his focus to the three summoned heroes and their combat readiness. Ragius gasps in shock as the monarch reveals the dark and ruthless path the kingdom will now take. The king plots to assassinate the Demon King and force a permanent treaty of economic submission upon them. Despite the merchant's warnings that the current heroes are insufficient, the monarch remains coldly confident in himself. With a sinister smirk, the king dismisses the concerns, asserting that he understands the risks perfectly well. Regius mentions the divine law preventing demons from killing heroes. Realizing the monarch intends to break the order, clenching his fist, the king prepares to ignite a conflict that will burn across the entire world. He declares his intent to frame the demons for the heroes' deaths, triggering an all-out racial war. Narrowing his eyes, the monarch resolves to crush the demonic race before their new prosperity can grow further. He ruthlessly decides that sacrificing the lives of the summoned heroes is a small price for total victory. Snapping his fingers with cold finality, the king orders his subordinates to leave and execute his strategy. Staring at the existing treaty, the monarch mocks the demons for thinking they could ever achieve true independence. His gaze burns with malice as he vows to remind the world that humanity reigns supreme over all. Meanwhile, in the palace hallways, a lone figure overhears the whispered mentions of an upcoming castle siege. A girl stands before the closed doors, wondering if she truly heard the words that signal an invasion. Hidden behind the heavy doors, the hero continues to eavesdrop on the king's sinister and secret conversation. He overhears the horrific plan to sacrifice the summoned heroes to trigger an all-out racial war. Consequently, he realizes the monarch is merely using them as disposable pawns for a greater world conquest. Shaking off the dark thoughts, he walks down the hall, trying to convince himself it's just a misunderstanding. While his boots echo through the silent corridor, he attempts to distance himself from the chilling royal betrayal. Abruptly, he stops in his tracks, contemplating the terrifying reality of what would happen if the king was serious. He eventually dismisses the suspicion as paranoia, unaware that the gears of the world's destruction are already turning. Right then, the scene shifts toward a desolate wasteland, far from the eyes of any unwanted or prying observers. Standing amidst the barren rocks, Melsha comments on the absolute emptiness of their chosen and remote training ground. Exile explains that this isolation is necessary to prevent their immense power from destroying any nearby human settlements. Furthermore, he challenges her to finally use her full strength without any more hesitation or self-imposed mental limits. Eagerly accepting the invitation, the Demon Queen prepares to demonstrate the true extent of her newly refined abilities. Exile watches with an expectant smirk, urging her to strike him with everything she has gathered thus far. Right then, she vows to go all out, her eyes burning with a fierce determination to surpass her limits. Summoning her legendary demon spear, she manifests a barrage of dark energy that crackles with immense and unstable power. Immediately, she unleashes a violent and relentless assault, sending streaks of black magic roaring across the dusty arena floor. Calmly evaluating the threat, Exile notes that her specialized spear technique cannot be blocked by any ordinary barrier. He manifests his rigid shell barrier, a high-density shield that effortlessly withstands the massive impact of her magical projectiles. Meanwhile, Melsha follows up with homing bolts, yet Exile counters instantly by deploying a specialized magnet-based defense. The queen screams in pure disbelief as her own attacks are caught and comically neutralized by his overwhelming magic. Frustrated by her failed attempt, Melsha curses under her breath while preparing to switch her tactical approach. Exhaling a long sigh of relief, she watches the dust settle after her massive magical discharge misses its mark. Exile smirks at her tenacity, quietly deciding that it is finally time to launch his own strategic counteroffensive. Suddenly, a thick neurotoxin mist envelops the battlefield, forcing the Demon Queen to desperately cover her face. Trapped within the swirling gray clouds, she struggles to breathe, while the dangerous magical poison begins its effect. Exile observes with interest as Melsha quickly manifests a detoxification spell to neutralize the deadly airborne threat. However, she surprises him by channeling a massive amount of mana into a hidden secondary offensive formation. Noticing the shift in energy, Exile realizes that her detoxification was merely a distraction for a far larger spell. With a triumphant shout, the queen declares the battle's end as she unleashes her most devastating, fire-based technique. A colossal pillar of roaring flames engulfs Rizel's position, completely illuminating the desolate wasteland with blinding light. To her utter shock, Rizel emerges completely unscathed from the inferno, casually asking if that was her final move. Comically confused, Chibi Melsha frantically questions how he survived without even deploying a visible magical barrier. Rizel encourages her to examine her magic circle closely, prompting the queen to stare in silent, growing disbelief. She realizes her target coordinates were rewritten to none, learning that her complex magic is vulnerable to interference. Wailing in frustration, Melsha admits that her eagerness for a quick victory caused her to make a fatal error. Nevertheless, Rizel reassures her that such high-level 3D magic remains extremely effective against standard synthetic heroes. He praises her nearly perfect strategic execution, acknowledging that only a true master could have countered her plan. Moved by his genuine encouragement, the queen listens as he confirms she has finally reached a formidable level. With a confident and sharp grin, she vows to continue her intense training until the synthetic heroes are defeated. Finally, they solidify their bond with a firm fist bump, marking the official end of their grueling training session. Melsha happily munches on a sandwich, enjoying a well-deserved meal after their intense and high-stakes training session. Rizel agrees that the process of honing their skills together has been surprisingly enjoyable for both of them. While resting atop a rocky formation, they share a quiet moment of camaraderie amidst the desolate wasteland. Continuing to eat, Melsha explains that learning new techniques, particularly advanced defensive spells, is truly exciting. Rizel offers a gentle smile, expressing his genuine relief that she finds the path of growth so rewarding. He admits his earlier concern that she might lose her motivation once her initial goals were finally met. Flashing a confident grin, the Demon Queen vows to uphold her promise and remain his steadfast ally forever. Rizel reflects in silence, noting that her sincere attitude is vastly different from his former companions back home. They discuss the delicious sandwiches, and Rizel expresses shock upon hearing that the beastman Zeke can actually cook. Melsha stretches her limbs and suggests returning home, while a magical portal begins to hum behind them. Suddenly, a deep and echoing vibration ripples through the air, causing both warriors to freeze in immediate confusion. An enormous snout exhales a thick cloud of smoke, revealing the presence of a massive and hidden beast. A colossal and ancient eye snaps open with a terrifying intensity, focusing its gaze on the two intruders. A legendary dragon towers over the landscape, roaring in fury at those who dared to disturb its long slumber. Trembling with visible fear, Melsha stammers in disbelief, while Rizel calmly asks if the creature is a local. In a comical state of panic, she shrieks that she has never encountered a real dragon until this moment. She realizes the beast perfectly resembles a catastrophic entity mentioned in ancient and long-forgotten demonic legends. Melsha recounts a tragic tale from 10,000 years ago, where a single dragon eradicated an entire flourishing civilization. She explains that world peace was established solely on the strict condition that the dragon remains undisturbed forever. The ground quakes violently as the ancient monster takes a heavy step forward, signaling an impending and disastrous confrontation. The ancient dragon fully awakens, radiating a prehistoric aura that instantly fills the desolate landscape with immense pressure. Melsha trembles in fear, realizing they have inadvertently disturbed a creature responsible for the destruction of entire civilizations. Rizel remains unfazed, casually observing the massive beast while considering the best way to handle the sudden situation. He lightheartedly apologizes for the interruption, much to the comical shock of a completely panicked chibi-style Melsha. Rizel gives a playful thumbs up, suggesting they simply knock the legendary monster back into its long slumber. The ancient dragon unleashes a deafening roar, expressing its absolute fury at being disturbed by mere puny insects. Glowering at the pair, the beast sneers at the demons who dare to stand defiantly before its majesty. Melsha frantically flees, while shouting that Rizel's casual attitude has only served to further enrage the legendary monster. The creature gathers a massive orb of fiery energy in its maw, preparing to incinerate the insolent trespassers. Rizal calmly activates an absorption barrier, surprising the Demon Queen with his effortless and perfectly timed magical defense. A violent explosion rocks the wasteland as the dragon's breath attack crashes harmlessly against Rizal's invisible wall. Gasping in shock, Melsha realizes that they have survived a strike that should have been instantly fatal. The ancient monster narrows its slit pupil eye in genuine confusion, unable to comprehend why its power failed. Rizal smiles confidently, informing the queen that her current trained strength already far surpasses this old dragon's limits. Clenching her fists, Melsha begins to realize she truly holds the power to slay a prehistoric legendary beast. The dragon continues to rant, unaware that its aura of invincibility has been shattered by Rizal's strategic insight. The unfair clauses of the Human-Demon Treaty flash by, highlighting the centuries of oppression the demons have endured. Melsha adopts a truly menacing Demon King expression, realizing that defeating this dragon will finally void the treaty. Rizal enthusiastically cheers her on as she prepares to launch into her first official and historical high-stakes battle. The dragon bellows a final and desperate warning, vowing to burn the insolent queen into nothing but ash. Melsha vows to hunt the dragon for the future of the demon race, her eyes burning with resolve. Instantly, she manifests a barrage of shimmering magical spears, preparing to launch a decisive and final strike. Channeling her full power, she whispers the name of her ultimate attack, the Demon Spear, into the air. Consequently, a massive explosion engulfs the ancient beast, as the magic makes a direct and powerful impact. Meanwhile, the dragon bellows one last desperate threat of wrath, while its ancient eye narrows in pure agony. Shortly after, a blinding flash of energy consumes the battlefield, signaling the official end of the legendary battle. Gradually, dust and debris settle around the dragon's heavy legs as the monster's colossal form begins to crumble. With a thunderous crash, the prehistoric beast finally falls, defeated by the queen's overwhelming and newly refined magic. Following the victory, Melsha stares in disbelief, comically wondering if the world-threatening encounter is actually over so quickly. Rizal chuckles, admitting that while she has grown stronger, the dragon was surprisingly weaker than its legend suggested. Determined to prevent another awakening, Melsha suggests a finishing blow to ensure the monster remains in its slumber. Standing before the massive remains, Rizal suggests using the dragon's corpse as leverage for future human negotiations. While Melsha considers the logistics, she wonders how to provide definitive proof of slaying such a feared creature. Furthermore, she proposes harvesting the remains for rare, magical materials, while Rizal ponders the potential uses. Suddenly, a brilliant and clever idea strikes Rizal, causing him to gasp as the perfect strategy finally forms. Right then, Melsha leans in curiously, asking her partner if he has devised a secret plan for them. Excitedly, Chibi-style Melsha begs for the immediate details of his presumably magnificent and flawless new idea. He smiles warmly, promising to explain his plan while requesting her assistance to execute the next phase. Eventually, time passes as the sky changes color, marking the transition from their victory into a new chapter. Soft clouds drift across the horizon while the pair prepares for their return to the Demon Kingdom's palace. Rizal prepares a surprise gift for Sissel under the moonlight, sparking curiosity within the royal demonic chambers. Melsha enthusiastically encourages her sister to accept the offering, while Rizal manifests a specialized magical storage array. Sissel gazes in absolute wonder at the shimmering magic sword crafted from the remains of the ancient dragon. Rizal explains that the weapon is keyed specifically to their bloodline, making it a unique and powerful artifact. Overwhelmed by its immense power, Sissel initially hesitates to accept such a significant and potentially world-altering gift. Melsha places a supportive hand on her younger sister's shoulder, providing much-needed comfort and royal guidance. The queen explains that Sissel must be prepared to defend the kingdom if she ever becomes unavailable. Realizing the heavy weight of her future responsibilities, Sissel looks down with a serious and determined expression. Stealing her resolve, the young girl finally accepts the sword, while expressing her sincere gratitude to Rizal. Melsha praises Rizal's incredible strength, but he reminds her that he wasn't the one who landed the blow. With a boastful laugh, the queen reminds everyone that she was the one who ultimately defeated the legendary beast. Melsha continues to brag about her victory, while Rizal teasingly mentions how terrified she was during the initial encounter. Curiously, Sissel asks if the entire colossal body of the dragon was utilized solely for the sword's creation. Melsha joyfully reveals that a massive amount of meat remains, proposing an immediate and grand celebratory banquet. The sisters excitedly discuss the prospect of a luxurious dragon feast to reward the hard-working castle staff. A magnificent banquet unfolds in the castle courtyard, bringing joy and high spirits to the gathered demonic citizens. Rizal notes that dragon meat is surprisingly tender, finding the festive atmosphere a pleasant change from their training. Settling onto a bench, Melsha acknowledges that their peaceful moment is temporary, and many challenges still remain. Looking toward the distant horizon, the queen solemnly declares that their true struggle is only just beginning now. Rizal agrees, warning that the synthetic heroes possess strength that far eclipses even the ancient dragon's legendary power. Rizal notes that a manipulative goddess and powerful synthetic heroes lurk behind the scenes of this war. Consequently, Melsha and Rizal agree they must tighten their resolve before facing their dangerous otherworldly enemies. Sissel offers a warm and supportive smile, expressing her absolute faith in their eventual and certain victory. With a dark expression, the queen vows never to compromise when negotiating terms with the human race. Sensing her intense demonic aura, Rizal finds her sudden and bloodthirsty determination to be quite terrifying indeed. Meanwhile, the scene returns to the demon castle, where a new and unexpected group finally arrives. Following the celebratory banquet, Melsha collapses onto the sofa, complaining that she cannot possibly eat another bite. Rizal laughs while noting that her lazy behavior doesn't exactly reflect the dignity of a supreme monarch. Suddenly, a sharp spark of detection passes between them as they sense several hostile presences approaching the gates. Rizal asks if Melsha noticed the three intruders currently standing directly before the castle's main entrance. From the high battlements, they observe the three remaining summoned heroes as they reach their final destination. Banza, Frode, and Riel stand defiantly before the fortress, prepared to execute their assigned and lethal mission. Remarking on their short journey, the heroes marvel at how quickly they located the Demon King's stronghold. Banza boasts that he will handle the demon monarch personally, causing his companions to watch him with concern. Meanwhile, the strategist Riel clicks his tongue in annoyance, warning the group against taking such rash actions. Standing before the massive doors, Banza bellows at the top of his lungs for the demonic ruler's appearance. Two demon guards immediately cross their spears, refusing to let the insolent intruders pass through the royal gate. Insulted at being called an orc, the muscular hero's rage begins to boil over as he clenches his fist. Cracking his knuckles with a menacing grin, Banza threatens to beat the guards before facing their queen. Undeterred, the loyal sentry vows to protect the palace gate, even if it costs him his very life. Observing the gate, Rizal, Melsha, and Sissel acknowledge the deteriorating situation at the palace entrance. Rizal uses his advanced scanning magic to monitor the three enemies currently challenging the castle's outer defensive perimeter. Recalling his staged death, Rizal considers a magical disguise to avoid revealing his survival to his former companions. Banza faces off against a demon guard, the air thick with murderous intent and physical tension. Shouting a challenge, the muscular hero dares the demon sentry to strike with full power. Suddenly, the guard's spear and Banza's strength collide in a sharp magical explosion. A dense pillar of dark energy manifests between the combatants, startling both Banza and the guard. The black vortex crackles with intense mana that exceeds the guard's basic capabilities. Selena emerges from the shadows, her cold voice questioning the group's audacity to violate the Demon King's sanctuary. Recognizing her as a high-ranking demon, the heroes struggle to maintain their composure under her overwhelming magical pressure. The demon guards immediately drop to their knees, offering their deepest apologies for their failure to repel the trespassers. Selena casts a cold glance toward the heroes, while Frode considers if negotiation is possible with this formidable woman. Frode quickly restrains Banza, realizing that a direct confrontation with such an opponent would be suicide. Stepping forward, the strategist requests a brief moment to explain their presence and ask a critical, lingering question. He offers a polite apology for their earlier rudeness, attempting to pivot the encounter toward a more diplomatic conversation. Despite the tension, he desperately asks if they can be granted a peaceful audience regarding a very specific matter. Banza and Real watch silently as their companion attempts to navigate the dangerous situation through careful words alone. Selena initiates a private telepathic link with Meltia to discuss the situation while maintaining her stoic outward appearance. Abruptly, she asks the trio if they are familiar with the specific and forbidden term synthetic hero. Her expression turns chillingly serious as she probes the group's knowledge of the kingdom's darkest and most secret project. Frode reacts with shock, shouting if they already know about the forbidden and secret term. Meltia consults Rizel while he tells her to handle the intruders however she sees fit. Shortly after, the queen orders a change of location, instructing Selena to prepare for immediate teleportation. Consequently, the heroes are confused and defensive after arriving at the new location. Banza, demanding answers. Right then, Frode clenches his teeth, realizing something is very wrong, but trying to stay composed. While his comrades panic, Frode looks sweatily concerned, repeating that everything is fine despite his fear. Suddenly, a massive magic circle erupts around the heroes as they are brought into the throne room. Banza screams in disbelief at the sheer size and intricacy of the magical formation surrounding them. Then, Frode realizes the demons had no intention of a simple discussion, fearing they have been tricked. Gradually, the realization that they were deceived, finally and utterly, sinks in as he stares into space. The three heroes look up as a brilliant light fills the grand and majestic audience chamber. Feet click against the floor as a pair of high-heeled boots signals the demon monarch's arrival. Banza, Real, and Frode stare in awe and fear at the powerful figure appearing before them. Under the heavy atmosphere, a shadowy figure with a sinister smile welcomes the summoned heroes. The demon queen, Meltia, officially introduces herself, standing tall in her majestic and dark throne room. Startled, the heroes are paralyzed with shock, unable to believe the legendary demon king is a girl. Meltia smiles mockingly, offering to reveal the dark truth of this world to the clueless saviors. Desperately, Frode begs for an explanation regarding the synthetic heroes and their true purpose for summoning. Meltia explains that heroes are mere nourishment to be synthesized into the kingdom's ultimate living weapon. Finally, Frode's face pales as he realizes they cannot escape the horrific fate planned for them. Banza erupts in a desperate rage, demanding absolute proof of the king's supposed and horrific betrayal. Lounging on her throne, Meltia mockingly acknowledges their skepticism while signaling for a definitive reveal. Selena steps forward with a cold smirk, while the three heroes watch her with growing suspicion. Suddenly, a familiar figure begins to step out from the shadows, his presence radiating an overwhelming aura. Rizel reveals his true identity to his former companions, leaving them paralyzed with pure, unadulterated shock. Banza grinds his teeth in disbelief, accusing Rizel of using another petty and deceptive magic trick. Calmly, Rizel activates a specialized recording device to show the heroes the reality of their situation. A magical holographic projection manifests, displaying a secret meeting occurring deep within the human palace. The heroes stare in horror as they witness the king's office and his hidden, sinister activities. Frode notes a mysterious figure standing before the monarch, someone completely unknown to the royal court. Meltia grins, finding the unfolding revelation extremely convenient for her plans to dismantle the human kingdom. Real screams in denial, insisting that the figures on the screen look like ordinary, harmless human beings. Rizel highlights a combat power reading of 39,000, identifying it as the result of synthesis. Devastated, Real wonders why they were summoned, if such a powerful champion already exists in their world. The number 39,000 looms over the heroes, symbolizing the accumulated power of their sacrificed predecessors. Meltia confirms the horrific truth that the summoned heroes were only meant to be monster food. Hope shatters as the trio realizes they are trapped in this world without any possibility of returning home. Tears stream down Riol's face as the crushing reality of never seeing his family again takes hold. Banza clutches his head in a state of absolute despair, cursing the unfairness of their heroic summoning. Finally, Meltia regally declares that this brutal cycle of sacrifice is the absolute truth of their world. Meltia declares her unforgiving hatred for the humans who have oppressed her race for countless and cruel generations. Banza desperately begs for assistance, pleading for the Demon King to save them from their planned royal sacrifice. From her throne, Meltia mocks their short tempers, while Rizal watches the pathetic display with a silent indifference. The Demon Monarch stares down at the broken heroes, contemplating their potential worth in her upcoming counter-strategy. Riol adds his own voice to the group's plea, desperately hoping for a sliver of demonic compassion. He bows low before the throne, offering his absolute loyalty just to secure a path back home. Silence fills the room as Meltia prepares to deliver her final and absolute verdict on their treacherous lives. The three heroes prostrate themselves before the Demon Queen, begging for mercy at any cost or consequence. Meltia flashes a predatory and dark grin, having finally decided on their role in her grand design. Consequently, she issues a terrifying command for all three heroes to immediately become lifeless and gruesome corpses. Transitioning to the human capital, rumors of an internal party conflict and a lone survivor begin circulating. A report mentions the legal consequences of the heroes' deaths, while a fire crackles in the palace hearth. The man reads that the prison term for the survivor is suspiciously short, barely lasting one single year. Listening to the details, the human king's face contorts with a mixture of greed and calculated malice. He dismisses the matter as reasonable, assuming his plot to start a war is proceeding perfectly. Suddenly, a violent spatial rift tears open in the royal office, interrupting the monarch's dark and confident thoughts. The king falls back in pure terror as he witnesses a sudden and horrific development before him. He finds one of his summoned champions lying dead on the carpet, his body cold and utterly broken. Screaming in absolute shock, the monarch stares at the three corpses delivered directly to him. Screaming in absolute shock, he gazes at a gaping hole in a hero's stomach, realizing his manipulation has invited a monstrous retribution. Trembling in absolute terror, the king wonders how an intruder reached his private office so easily. He gasps in despair, praying that this horrific situation is nothing more than a fleeting nightmare. Flashback to hours ago, Meltia commands the heroes to become corpses for her grand plan. Stunned by her ruthless words, the trio shouts in fear, realizing they might have been deceived. Meltia maintains a smug expression, asserting that she has only revealed the world's cold reality. Rizal intervenes with a sigh, telling the Demon Queen to stop teasing his former companions. Instead of stopping, she bursts into a fit of mocking laughter at the legendary saviors. The heroes watch in total bewilderment as the Demon Monarch continues her The heroes watch in total bewilderment. Clenching his fist, Banza demands she stop messing around before his patience finally reaches its limit. Meltia offers a playful apology, admitting she couldn't resist venting some of her long-held resentment. Banza insists on a simple explanation, admitting his own physical instincts far outpace his slow intellect. Taken aback by his blunt honesty, the Demon Queen stares at the muscular hero in genuine surprise. She reveals her fondness for straightforward people, telling Banza not to belittle his own simple nature. Turning to Rizal, Meltia requests that he handle the technical details of their upcoming strategic operation. The trio questions how Rizal managed to convince the entire human kingdom of his own death. With a calm smirk, he reveals the secret of the high-level magic used to stage his assassination. Horrified, Frode realizes that Rizal must have produced a realistic corpse to complete the deceptive ruse. Rizal clarifies that he didn't murder anyone, having used a biological clone of his own physical form. The heroes are still confused, asking if the person currently standing before them is actually a fake. Banza erupts in a comical panic, screaming that he cannot handle ghosts or any supernatural entities. Rizal reveals he used multifunctional stem cells to craft perfect clones, silencing the group with advanced otherworldly science. He explains that while cloning technology was advanced back home, its practical application here requires specific magical guidance. Banza expresses deep discomfort with clones, feeling uneasy about the idea of living duplicates existing alongside their original forms. While the heroes debate the ethics of cloning, Melsha watches their internal conflict with a mocking and amused smirk. Rizal abruptly halts the conversation, refocusing everyone's attention on the critical and imminent mission they must now execute. He asserts that utilizing clones is mandatory for this specific operation, regardless of any lingering moral or personal objections. Activating his specialized mana, the young mage begins the complex process of manifesting the 3 hero duplicates simultaneously. Within the swirling magical energy, the physical forms of the clones slowly coalesce into perfect replicas of the heroes. The 3 men watch in stunned silence as their own naked duplicates float serenely before them in the air. Frode and Reel worry about the logistics of disposing of the fake corpses to prevent detection or unseemly rotting. With a devious grin, Rizal proposes sending the bodies directly to the king's office to deliver a terrifying message. Meanwhile, in the human palace, the king wakes up from his fitful sleep while gasping in absolute terror. His attendant Regias enters the royal bedchamber, anxiously inquiring if his majesty has finally recovered from his deep slumber. Regias explains that he rushed to the room after hearing a piercing and sudden scream echo through the hallways. Clutching his head, the monarch groans in agony while the horrific memory of the dead heroes haunts his mind. Suddenly, the king snaps to attention, frantically demanding to know the truth behind the gruesome corpses in his office. Regias solemnly confirms that the bodies were indeed those of the 3 heroes sent to invade the demon castle. Bewildered by the speed of their return, the king questions how such a feat was even possible for demons. To provide an answer, Regius presents a mysterious and sophisticated magical device that was left beside the fallen heroes. He explains that the artifact is a long-range teleportation tool capable of bridging the massive distance between kingdoms. The king suspects a clever hermit or sage assisted the demons, realizing they couldn't build such technology alone. Regias presents the letter found with the bodies, inquiring about the specific message the demonic race sent. Melsha's mocking letter thanks the king for the heroes and announces the death of the legendary ancient dragon. Reading the provocative words, the monarch trembles with a silent and murderous fury while clutching the parchment. He screams in a blind rage, insulted by the demon king's demands for a complete and total treaty revision. Snarling, he interprets the letter's contents as a formal and aggressive declaration of war from the demon realm. He bellows orders for Regius to prepare the synthetic heroes for an immediate and scorched earth retaliatory invasion. Regius hesitates, recommending that they send spies first to investigate the demon's increasingly suspicious and strange behavior. The king glares with chilling intensity, asking if his attendant truly intends to defy a direct royal command. Terrified, the servant quickly bows and vows to follow the monarch's orders without any further question or delay. Alone, the king resolves to use his ultimate weapons to crush the demons and reclaim his absolute authority. Meanwhile, Melsha's maniacal laughter echoes through the night sky above the demon castle as their plan succeeds. She points toward the human kingdom, gloating about how the king fell perfectly for Rizal's deceptive psychological trap. Rizal watches the king's panicked reaction on his monitor, acknowledging that the arrogant monarch behaved exactly as predicted. Melsha cheers as the king finally activates the specific teleportation trigger that Rizal secretly planted in the device. Banza and the heroes sigh in relief, admitting their past lives were foolishly wasted serving such a cruel kingdom. The muscular hero admits that synthesizing humans is truly repulsive compared to Rizal's sophisticated and ethical cloning methods. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door interrupts their gathering, prompting Rizal to ask if their guest arrived. A voice from the hallway confirms they have brought the requested teleportation artifact for the final strategic phase. The attendant enters and hands over the formal letter that accompanied the device, receiving a quiet thank you. Chibi Melsha cheerily bids farewell to the messenger as the heavy doors click shut. Curious about the contents, the demon queen eagerly unfurls the king's formal and written response. She reads the document intently, her expression shifting as she processes the monarch's desperate and aggressive stance. Rizal enters the room, calmly inquiring if they received a favorable reply from the Human Kingdom's palace. Wearing a sinister smirk, Melsha confirms that their target fell perfectly for their elaborate psychological trap. 1 month later, the humans prepare to deploy their synthetic heroes to burn the demon realm. Sensing the impending conflict, the summoned heroes tremble with visible anxiety about the scale of the war. Melsha watches her allies with a look of genuine confusion, wondering why they are suddenly so worried. Rizal surprises the group by bluntly stating that they won't even need to participate in this battle. The heroes stare in absolute shock, unable to comprehend why they are being benched during a war. Rizal analyzes the enemy's likely strategy of using small elite units to demonstrate their overwhelming synthetic power. Melsha regally declares her intent to meet the humans' arrogance head-on and shatter their ultimate living weapon. Hearing her bold proclamation, the three heroes watch their queen with a mixture of awe and fear. With a dark and knowing grin, she confirms that her plan involves taking the stage herself. The Demon Monarch officially announces her decision to engage the synthetic hero in a high-stakes one-on-one duel. Rizal stands alone under the moonlight, finalizing his own secret preparations for the world-changing event tomorrow. Early the next morning, a bewildered Frode finds the mage busy and asks about his strange activities. Rizal reveals a floating surveillance artifact, explaining he has placed these magic eyes throughout the entire territory. He casually mentions borrowing materials from Frode to finish mass-producing the thousands of required mechanical devices. Realizing Rizal achieved this feat in a single day, Frode concludes the mage is the truly terrifying one. Rizal informs Frode that he is setting up magic tools to broadcast the impending duel to the world. He explains this display of power will ensure nobody dares to threaten the demon realm during Melsha's absence. Shocked, Frode learns that Rizal plans to take the Demon Queen back to his original world as an ally. Consequently, Frode trembles at the thought of a world containing enemies far beyond even Rizal's terrifying capabilities. While Rizal offers his thanks, Frode breathes a sigh of relief that he chose cooperation over a hopeless battle. Meanwhile, in the West Marina's desert, Selena tests her microphone to prepare for the live broadcast of history. She loudly announces a new era for the demonic race, while a massive army of spectators roars in excitement. Observing the humans, Rizal notes their small numbers as Melsha explains they underestimate her race's true potential. Arrogant laughter rings out from the human side as they mock the demons for sending only 2 representatives. The synthetic hero steps forward with a smug grin, commenting on how Melsha has matured since their last encounter. Hovering high above the dunes, Melsha admits she cannot even recall his name, despite his bold and familiar greeting. Rizal confirms the goddess is lurking nearby, just to watch the spectacle, leaving the human capital's palace completely vulnerable. Recognizing a golden opportunity, Rizal realizes that an undefended castle is far too tempting for him to ignore. Abruptly, he makes a flimsy excuse about an urgent errand and asks Melsha to handle the duel alone. Watching him prepare for a sudden departure, the Demon Queen lets out a weary sigh at his unpredictable nature. She encourages him to go, knowing that attempting to stop the mysterious mage would be an exercise in futility. Chibi Melsha whistles a tune, confident that she will have finished the fight by the time he eventually returns. Rizal vanishes into the distance with a knowing smile, leaving the battlefield to his powerful and capable demonic partner. The hero continues his mockery, daring Melsha to summon her entire army instead of facing him by herself. Melsha bursts into uncontrollable laughter, causing the confused synthetic hero to wonder if she has truly lost her mind. Melsha laughs at Grode, realizing how foolish she was to fear such weak trash for years. Her reptilian eye glows with malice while she continues her mocking and unbridled laughter. Enraged by her insults, the synthetic hero screams that he will make her regret her words. He orders his troops to stand back, vowing to settle the duel with his own hands. Within the dark mist, Melsha remarks on how shallow and easily manipulated her opponent truly is. They trade death threats as the atmosphere between the two combatants crackles with intense killing intent. Grode lunges forward with a massive horizontal sword swing, boasting a 10-second victory. A violent magical explosion erupts as Meltia counters his reckless charge with a sudden burst of power. Dark lightning bolts rain down from the sky, signaling the beginning of Meltia's true counterattack. A colossal pillar of light consumes the battlefield, sending shockwaves across the desert sands. Caught in the blast, Grode groans in agony as his armor begins to shatter under the pressure. Blinding flashes of magical energy overwhelm his senses, preventing any chance of an immediate counterstrike. Black energy streaks rain down from above, while Grode's recovery remains painfully and comically slow. Straining to recover, Grode curses his opponent while Meltia mocks his inability to even dodge. Meltia hovers high above, noting how long it is taking for his synthetic body to heal itself. Gritting his teeth, the hero forces a bloody grin and insists such damage is nothing to him. A razor-sharp magical projectile tears through the air with silent and deadly speed toward the target. Multiple magical projectiles explode around the hero, further depleting his dwindling mana reserves. Believing her attacks were just a bluff, Grode prepares one last desperate and all-out charge. Without warning, a massive hole is blown through his torso, ending his arrogance in a single strike. Desperately coughing up blood, the hero calls for healing, while struggling to hold his broken body together. Meltia mocks his desperation with a cold smile, preparing a final dark spell to end his suffering. A violent surge of demonic energy strikes the ground, delivering a devastating blow to the arrogant synthetic warrior. Miraculously, the hero boasts about his full recovery, thanking her for waiting as he prepares to counterattack. Suddenly, his physical form begins to crack and shatter, unable to withstand the overwhelming pressure of his evolution. He screams in terror as his limbs begin to dissolve, realizing his existence is being erased by her power. Meltia watches his pathetic struggle with cold eyes, reflecting on the many reasons for his inevitable and total defeat. Floating serenely, she declares that his weakness was his only sin as his body crumbles into a husk. Stepping away from the remains, she prepares to depart the battlefield, while the desert wind scatters his ashes. The once mighty synthetic hero lies as a hollow shell on the sand, completely and utterly extinguished by her. Silence falls over the wasteland as Meltia gazes at the sky. Her long and difficult battle finally finished. Dismissing the fight as a boring disappointment, she turns her attention toward the next phase of her plan. Human onlookers stare at the broadcast in absolute disbelief, horrified by the sudden death of their ultimate champion. Selena continues her dramatic commentary, expressing her shock at the abrupt and one-sided conclusion of the historic duel. The arena erupts in cheers as Meltia is declared the winner, following her absolute and overwhelming victory over the hero. With a celebratory shout, the broadcast officially ends, leaving the human kingdom in a state of pure panic. A peaceful flower graphic signals the end of the transmission, marking the beginning of a new demonic era. Meltia notices Rizel's return and asks if he enjoyed watching her final and decisive strike against the hero. Rizel praises her magnificent performance, revealing that his own clandestine preparations are also complete at long last. While Chibi Meltia questions his mysterious activities, Chibi Rizel simply offers a mischievous and lighthearted laugh in response. Rizel reveals he stole the hero's synthesis device, leaving Meltia completely speechless with shock. Giving a confident thumbs up, he confirms that his detailed analysis of the enemy's tech was successful. Rizel mentions needing an audience, while an excited Chibi Meltia pops up behind him in anticipation. Turning toward the sky, the young mage loudly challenges the goddess to reveal her hidden presence. Silence hangs over the vast and desolate Marina's desert as they wait for a divine response. Rizel notes that she might not take such a simple bait, yet his expression remains calculating. Calmly, he remarks that the current situation will eventually force his elusive target into the open. Excitedly, Chibi Meltia cheers at the prospect of finally beginning their planned high-stakes magical experiment. A determined smirk plays on Rizel's lips as he prepares to execute the next strategic phase. Half hidden in shadow, Rizel declares his intent to begin the synthesis experiment with the stolen device. He confirms his readiness to proceed, while Meltia watches with a mixture of awe and anticipation. Acknowledging his resolve, the Demon Queen tells him to go ahead since she cannot stop him. Transitioning quickly, Rizal prepares for another high-speed traversal while Meltia wishes him good luck. He arrives outside a majestic, snow-covered castle, identifying it as his primary destination for infiltration. Consulting his digital map, Rizal identifies the exact chamber where the synthesis device is currently kept. Utilizing his advanced cloaking magic, the former hero begins his silent and invisible entry into the palace. He successfully locates the artifact, finding it displayed on a pedestal in an unexpectedly empty room. Focusing his magical vision, he confirms there are no hidden traps protecting the Vital Kingdom asset. Reaching out, Rizal mocks the human's arrogance for leaving such a powerful tool completely unguarded. He remains in the silence, realizing that his bold intrusion has gone entirely and comically unnoticed. Rizal gloats in the shadows of the palace, amazed by how effortlessly he managed to steal the synthesis device. He decides to utilize his remaining time to perform a deep magical analysis on the stolen Human Kingdom artifact. While examining the machine, he reacts with genuine surprise as he discovers the true nature of its complex internal workings. A devious smirk plays on his lips as he realizes the device will be perfectly suited for his goals. Returning to the desert, Rizal observes the fallen hero, while noting that Meltia finished her battle at perfect timing. Meltia looks back at her partner, who praises her magnificent and decisive victory over the arrogant synthetic champion. Suddenly, Meltia shrieks in absolute shock as Rizal nonchalantly admits to stealing the human's most precious magical research tool. Giving a confident thumbs up, he reassures the startled queen that his technical analysis of the machine was completely thorough. Rizal then declares his intent to attract an audience, plotting to force the elusive goddess out of her hiding. Shouting toward the empty horizon, he challenges the divine being to reveal herself and reclaim her stolen royal property. Silence follows his bold proclamation as the pair gazes at the empty dunes while waiting for a celestial response. Meltia notes the goddess's refusal to appear, leading Rizal to conclude that she won't be provoked so easily today. He remains confident, knowing that the upcoming ritual will eventually leave the divine target with no room for hesitation. Confusion crosses Meltia's face as she asks why the synthesis experiment involves Rizal instead of her own power. Using a diagram, Rizal explains how the stolen device expands a user's mana capacity by absorbing and synthesizing energy. Pouting, Meltia suggests it would be better for her to use it since she already possesses massive mana reserves. Rizal reacts with visible shock, asking the Demon Queen if she truly remains unaware of her own current strength. He reveals the incredible fact that her total mana capacity already far exceeds his own high-level magical output. Meltia stands frozen in absolute silence, processing the revelation that she has finally surpassed her teacher's natural mana limits. With a warm smile, Rizal confirms that he wanted a partner who could truly stand alongside him as equals. Rizal explains his experiment is for the sake of staying by Meltia's side as an equal partner. Furthermore, he mentions a secondary secret regarding the stolen Human Kingdom's hero synthesis and enhancement device. Consequently, Chibi Meltia tilts her head in curiosity, asking what this hidden and mysterious feature could possibly be. Rizal reveals the device connects directly to the goddess's spirit circuit, opening a path for mental interference. Stunned, Meltia repeats his claim about the direct link to the goddess in a state of absolute disbelief. He explains that his expertise in mental magic makes him the ideal subject for this high-stakes manipulation plan. Meanwhile, Meltia struggles with the danger, while Rizal notes her obvious and fierce demonic curiosity for the test. Despite her lingering worries about safety, the Demon Queen decides to support the mage's reckless and experimental initiative. Excitement fills the air as Chibi Meltia cheers for the experiment, while Rizal prepares the magical artifact. With a serious gaze, Rizal finally prepares to activate the stolen device and begin the synthesis process now. Below them, the broken and lifeless remains of the defeated synthetic hero provide the necessary raw materials. Abruptly, blinding light erupts from the artifact, completely enveloping Rizal as the synthesis process reaches its peak. Shielding her eyes, Meltia watches the intense magical phenomenon while wondering about the potential outcome of the test. Rizal remains focused and calm, confirming that the initial activation of the device proceeded without any major issues. Then, he notes with relief that his personality remains intact, successfully resisting any potential corruption during synthesis. Mana overflows from his physical form, yet he maintains total control over the immense and surging otherworldly power. With a satisfied and confident smile, Rizal officially declares that his daring experiment has been a complete success. Melsha shrieks in total shock at the results, unable to believe a human could survive such a ritual. Suddenly, both warriors sense an approaching presence and turn their attention toward the distant horizon with shared curiosity. They observe a terrified human commander, realizing the enemy's leadership has finally witnessed their overwhelming and absolute power. The human commander screams in disbelief, asking how the demons obtained the kingdom's most precious and secret artifact. Nearby, Rizal and Melsha share a dark and knowing smirk, savoring the panic of their broken and defeated enemy. Rizal bluntly admits to stealing the device from the palace, while the soldier stammers that it was hidden deep. Handing over a scroll, Rizal commands the terrified man to deliver a message to his king immediately without fail. The soldier gazes at the floating scroll in confusion, wondering what horrific contents could be written within the parchment. Melsha cold-bloodedly explains that the document is a final demand for the human kingdom's total and unconditional surrender. Trembling with fear, the messenger cries that the king will execute him if he returns with such insulting news. Melsha leans in with a menacing grin, offering to sever his head right now if he prefers that fate instead. Overwhelmed by absolute terror, the human messenger flees the battlefield at an impossible speed while screaming for his life. The demon queen waves a mocking farewell, shouting for him to reach the palace before his inevitable execution day. Reaching his troops, the panting commander orders an immediate and silent retreat, refusing to explain the sudden change. Rizal asks if the man will actually deliver the scroll, and Melsha confidentially predicts that he will certainly succeed. Chibi Melsha watches the human army disappear over the horizon, her victory over the synthetic hero now fully complete. The retreating soldier grinds his teeth in agony, vowing to hate the demon queen forever, even after his death. Melsha laughs off the human's petty resentment, finding his desperate bravado to be nothing more than a comical joke. While the desert wind blows, Melsha asks Rizal why he chose not to use teleportation to send them back. Rizal explains his desire to explore new combat tactics, utilizing the massive mana he gained from his successful synthesis. Melsha listens with a neutral expression, yet her gaze reveals a slight hint of envy toward his rapid growth. She eventually pouts and complains that it is unfair for Rizal to get stronger while she did all the fighting. Rizal adjusts his gloves with a confident smirk, promising Melsha that he has a special secret strategy just for her. Melsha reacts with a blush and shock, repeating the mention of a secret strategy in pure disbelief. Rizal suggests returning to the castle immediately, where Sissel is waiting with a grand celebratory feast. Transitioning to the castle, the pair walks through the courtyard as the afternoon sun begins to set. A massive gathering of soldiers, maids, and elderly demons welcomes their queen back with absolute reverence. Melsha breaks into a wide, joyous grin, celebrating her triumphant return while Rizal watches with quiet satisfaction. The two sisters share a tearful embrace, while Selena and the castle staff weep with overwhelming relief. Amidst the cheers, a few younger demons look on with comical confusion at the intense emotional display. Suddenly, the aroma of a massive dragon steak fills the air as the celebratory banquet finally begins. A boisterous chef presents a gargantuan slab of meat, prompting the sisters to scream with wide-eyed excitement. Melsha and Cecil feast heartily on the dragon meat while Rizal enjoys the peaceful and heartwarming atmosphere. Standing on the balcony, Rizal looks over the happy crowd and appreciates the peace they have won. As night falls, the sisters retire to their chamber, sharing a quiet and intimate conversation in bed. Melsha whispers with a determined look, reflecting on how she truly overcame the legendary synthetic hero's power. Looking sleepy, yet content, Sissel responds to her sister while the moonlight filters through their bedroom window. The demon queen raises her hand, contemplating the physical proof of her hard-earned and immense demonic strength. Sissel admits her vulnerability, confessing that she was deeply frightened and is still trembling from the battle. Reaching out, Meltia gently grasps her sister's hand to provide comfort and reaffirm their unbreakable familial bond. She vows to protect her people and kingdom using her prideful hands as the supreme demon monarch. Sissel looks up with newfound resolve, promising to gain the strength to protect their world together forever. Standing outside the room, Rizal leans against the wall and smiles while vowing to protect this land. Meltia ascends the grand palace staircase while the gathered demonic citizens whisper in awe and hushed anticipation. Her boots click firmly against the stone as she prepares to deliver a historical and world-changing announcement. Standing high upon the balcony, the Demon Queen commands absolute silence from the massive crowd gathered below. She declares that the threat of synthetic heroes has vanished, allowing her to depart for a training journey. While Meltia smiles confidently, the crowd reacts with visible anxiety about their future, without their supreme demonic leader. Reassuring her subjects, she promises to leave behind the entirety of her wisdom to ensure their continued prosperity. Summoning her younger sister to her side, Meltia prepares to make her final and most important royal proclamation. She then officially announces her decision to entrust the kingdom's full governing authority to her younger sister Sissel. A heavy silence falls over the demonic soldiers and servants as they process the queen's sudden royal decree. Stepping forward, Sissel hardens her expression and warns the people that she will not be as soft as her sister. Her gaze turns chillingly serious, demanding that every demonic citizen fulfill their personal missions with renewed and absolute focus. The crowd trembles under Sissel's intense and authoritative aura, quickly bowing their heads in silent and fearful submission. Days later, Rizal and Meltia stand by the sea to begin mastering an advanced and secret self-strengthening technique. Rizal instructs the Demon Queen to maintain a safe distance while he prepares to demonstrate his newly refined power. A brilliant magic circle erupts at the mage's feet, signaling the start of a massive and high-level casting ritual. Meltia watches intently, noting that Rizal is taking an unusually long time to finalize this specific and mysterious spell. Suddenly, a blinding flash of pure white energy consumes the entire coastline, masking the mage's physical and spiritual transformation. Gasping in absolute horror, the queen witnesses a gargantuan silhouette emerging from the light with a terrifying primal roar. Rizal reveals his new form, having successfully utilized the synthesis device to transform into a legendary prehistoric dragon. Meltia finally realizes that Rizal's concept of self-strengthening was actually the forbidden art of total and absolute dragonification. In his massive dragon form, Rizal admits the physical size makes fine magical operations quite inconvenient. Consequently, he explains that there is a second stage to his advanced and secret transformation magic. A sudden flash of light envelops the dragon as the final phase of the ritual begins. Rizal returns to his human appearance, leaving the Demon Queen staring in complete and total shock. He encourages Meltia to observe his body closely to see how his internal composition has changed. Staring intently, the queen focuses her senses to analyze the mysterious shift in her partner's aura. She realizes his human shell is now infused with the quality and density of a dragon. Rizal laughs at her quick deduction, praising her for correctly identifying the nature of his technique. Then, the mage quizzes Meltia on the strategic advantages of maintaining two racial forms simultaneously. Meltia contemplates the problem, noting the trade-off between a dragon's raw power and human dexterity. Suddenly, a wave of realization hits her as she understands the true brilliance of his method. She deduces that he eliminated the weaknesses of both forms by merging them into one state. Rizal confirms her theory with a diagram, showcasing how he combined human agility with draconic sturdiness. Overwhelmed by the logic, Meltia admits she never even considered such a world-defying magical evolution. However, she quickly grows discouraged, doubting whether she could ever master such an impossibly high-level technique. Rizal grabs her shoulders and shouts, demanding she stop her self-deprecating thoughts at once. He insists that while the magic is difficult, her natural talent already far exceeds the requirements. Letting out a weary sigh, he notes that her recurring lack of confidence is her worst habit. Rizal looks into her eyes with a solemn expression, acknowledging her difficult past under human oppression. Finally, he encourages her by stating that her doubt actually fosters the prudence necessary for leadership. Melcia reacts with wide-eyed shock, repeating Riesel's mention of a special secret strategy in utter disbelief. Riesel suggests returning to the castle, mentioning that Sissel has prepared a massive feast for their triumphant homecoming. Walking through the courtyard, Melcia and Riesel are greeted by a long line of reverent demonic subjects. Standing upon the grand balcony, the queen addresses a vast assembly of her loyal and cheering demonic citizens. Melcia laughs with unbridled joy, while Riesel watches the celebration with a calm and satisfied expression. The sisters share a heartfelt hug amidst their tearful subjects, celebrating the definitive end of the synthetic threat. One demon looks on with comical confusion, seemingly overwhelmed by the intense atmosphere of the royal victory. Later that night, Riesel sits alone on the terrace, meticulously reviewing his latest magical data and surveillance. Melcia excitedly approaches Riesel, while he remains focused on the holographic display of his advanced research results. With a triumphant shout, the queen announces her successful mastery of the complex and forbidden dragonification technique. Riesel praises her achievement, confirming that her new aura is truly magnificent and far exceeds his expectations. He teasingly reminisces about his own early struggles with transformation, much to the queen's amused and proud delight. Shifting the mood, Melcia asks a serious question, seeking clarification on a specific matter regarding the world's strength. She pouts while questioning if the synthetic hero was truly the peak of power in this entire realm. Riesel enters a contemplative state, his expression turning serious as he prepares to reveal a much larger mystery. Pointing toward the night sky, he asks Melcia for her opinion on the nature of the glowing moon. Melcia reacts with total bewilderment, unable to fathom why he would suddenly bring up such an absurd topic. She argues that nobody could possibly survive in such a desolate and distant place high above the world. With a mysterious smile, Riesel questions her assumption and suggests that the truth might be worth investigating personally. Leaning back comfortably, Riesel confirms that exploring the lunar mystery is exactly what he intends to do next. High-frequency signals pulse across the magical monitor, confirming the successful deployment of the orbital scanners. A specialized survey drone glides through the silent vacuum toward the glowing lunar surface. Emitting a rhythmic ping, the device meticulously maps the desolate and mysterious terrain below. Suddenly, it discovers a colossal fortress protected by a shimmering atmospheric dome on the moon. Meanwhile, a lone demon sentry stands guard within the quiet forests of the palace grounds. She pauses, sensing an unnatural and powerful resonance carrying through the cooling evening breeze. Closing her eyes, she concentrates her internal mana to identify the source of the disturbance. Abruptly, her gaze snaps open, revealing a fierce and reptilian eye brimming with draconic authority. A sharp crackle of energy erupts as the observation link is forcefully and suddenly severed. Back at the palace, Riesel casually inquires about Melcia's thoughts on the recent astronomical discovery. He smirks knowingly, realizing the hidden lunar occupants have already detected his prying magical eyes. Letting out a joyous laugh, he celebrates the existence of such truly formidable entities nearby. Melcia remains frozen in a state of comical and total cognitive dissonance over the news. She screams in absolute shock, unable to believe that lunar inhabitants actually exist in reality. Panic ensues as she frantically questions how such powerful beings could remain hidden for centuries. Regaining her composure, she curiously asks if they will now test their new joint technique. A subtle and confident smile plays across Riesel's lips as he prepares for the next phase. Stealing her resolve, the Demon Queen bellows her readiness to face the unknown lunar challenge. Riesel offers a warm and supportive nod, satisfied with her growth and fierce fighting spirit. Together, they fix their sights on the moon, vowing to confront the powerhouses dwelling within. Riesel and Melcia hover before the mysterious lunar tower, observing the strange structure within the atmospheric dome. Landing on the surface, Melcia is stunned that people actually inhabit this silent and distant satellite. While their feet dangle, Riesel contemplates the most efficient way to infiltrate the fortress. Abruptly, the entrance opens wide. Melcia suspects a trap, Yet Rizal notes a distinct lack of any immediate hostility. Brave the tiger's den now. Rizal suddenly halts his advance. Meltia asks why he stopped as the air quality shifts, dazing them both. Sniffing the air, the Demon Queen is bewildered to find oxygen and the fresh scent of green grass. Lush vegetation grows abundantly here. Meltia screams in absolute shock. Rizal identifies the phenomenon as advanced space creation magic, marveling at the unknown caster's immense power. Narrowing his eyes, the mage suggests that the being standing before them is not a mere person. A distant voice questions them. A muscular dragon man reveals himself, admitting he only let them enter because going outside was too tiresome. Rizal senses truly world-shattering strength. The dragon man casually asks for the true purpose behind their sudden and bold intrusion into his home. Brimming with excitement, Meltia joyfully challenges the powerful warrior to a duel to test her newly refined skills. The dragon man bursts into laughter, finding her honesty and lack of guile incredibly refreshing and likable. Despite his amusement, Meltia fumes with embarrassment, while Rizal prepares for the inevitable lunar confrontation. Meltia clears her throat, accepting the duel with a nervous but determined expression. Right then, the dragon man's hand starts to crack and glow with intense magical energy. He asks who will attack first, his reptilian eyes burning with a prehistoric intensity. Meanwhile, Rizal stands behind Meltia, his expression calm and stoic despite the immense pressure. Meltia declares they will both attack simultaneously, her face set in a fierce demonic grin. Consequently, the three combatants hover in the air, the atmosphere heavy with impending battle. The dragon man says, "Let's begin," preparing his first devastating lunar strike. Furthermore, Meltia vows to hold nothing back, her eyes shining with demonic pride. Rizal smirks, noting the high quality of the opponent and anticipating a fun fight. Abruptly, a massive shockwave of magical energy erupts as the battle officially commences. The dragon man's gaze narrows while focusing on his elusive targets amidst the chaos. Simultaneously, a blinding explosion of white light consumes the center of the battlefield. Meltia's speed is noted as she vanishes and reappears behind the ancient warrior. She throws a powerful punch, her fist trailing black energy as she strikes. Surprisingly, the warrior remarks on her clever swap, acknowledging that she is quite capable. Despite the attack, he prepares to counter, while focusing his intent on the nearby mage. Realizing her move was a feint, he identifies the real threat coming from behind him. He shouts in defiance, questioning if she truly believes such tactics can seal his movements. Suddenly, a concentrated blast strikes him directly, leaving him unable to respond in time. He curses as he realizes a fatal opening was created for an attack from his rear. Rizal and Meltia continue their coordinated assault, moving with incredible speed around their powerful opponent. Suddenly, a brilliant magical explosion erupts between the combatants as they clash with overwhelming force. Confirming his theory, the ancient warrior acknowledges their strategy while enduring the relentless barrage of strikes. Meltia notes Rizal's use of dragonification for enhancement, which he admits to borrowing from her people. Frustrated, the dragon man realizes their tactical plan is designed specifically to thoroughly neutralize his superior movements. Seizing a sudden opening, Meltia launches a high-velocity kick aimed directly at the towering ancient warrior's head. Despite his immense pride, the warrior sneers at the impact, dismissing the strength behind a young girl's strike. Nevertheless, the relentless assault continues as a series of heavy blows begins to overwhelm his draconic defenses. A devastating and well-placed hit finally connects with his face, sending shockwaves through his massive prehistoric frame. Stepping in to finalize the duel, Rizal delivers a powerful finishing blow that pierces through the warrior's torso. The defeated Lunar Guardian falls heavily toward the earth, his immense mana finally reaching its absolute limit. A final, blinding flash of pure magical energy signals the definitive conclusion of their high-stakes encounter. Lying broken amidst the grass, the ancient dragon man whispers an admission of his total and utter defeat. Approaching the fallen warrior, Rizal listens as he identifies them as visitors from a completely different world. He notes the strange design of their otherworldly clothing, while Rizal confirms they notice the subtle differences. Unexpectedly, the dying warrior offers to bequeath his most secret and powerful magical techniques to the young mage. Shocked by the sudden proposal, Rizal asks for clarification, while the ancient being struggles to maintain consciousness. The warrior mockingly notes Melsha's lack of dexterity, prompting a comically frustrated reaction from the pouting demon queen. With his life force fading, the old dragon man asks them to listen to his final and most urgent request. Exchanging a knowing look, Rizal and Melsha prepare to accept the heavy burden of the warrior's dying wish. Rizal kneels beside the dying ancient warrior, solemnly accepting the heavy burden of his final and sacred techniques. A brilliant and magical glow envelops their joined hands as the legacy of the prehistoric dragon man finally passes over. Rizal confirms he has certainly received the power, his expression grim as the old warrior's life force fades. With a final gasp, the old dragon man's hand falls limply to the ground, signaling his official and quiet passing. Staring at the fallen guardian, Rizal reflects on the weight of the trust placed upon his shoulders this day. The warrior's lingering words echo in the air, expressing the genuine joy he felt during their intense final battle. Melsha and Rizal stand together in silence, honoring the memory of the formidable opponent they just defeated together. The demon queen stammers in disbelief, unable to fathom that a warrior of such caliber inhabited this desolate world. Rizal notes that the ancient being likely dedicated every moment of his long life to the pursuit of strength. Meanwhile, a disgruntled Melsha contemplates her lingering frustrations, feeling there is still one important thing she must say. Noticing her internal conflict, Rizal turns toward his partner and calmly asks what is currently troubling her so much. Melsha demands to know why he felt the need to kill an opponent whose defeat was already clearly decided. Rizal meets her gaze with a stoic expression, preparing to justify the ruthless conclusion of their high-stakes lunar duel. She shouts that having such a powerful ally would have been far more beneficial than simply ending his life. Rizal tells her to wait, explaining that the specific technique he inherited makes his decision perfectly logical and necessary. Confused, Chibi-style Melsha pouts while questioning the true nature and potential of the warrior's final gift of power. Her gaze sharpens with intense curiosity as she waits for Rizal to finally unveil the secret behind his actions. Flashing a devious smirk, Rizal watches her reaction while preparing to drop a world-shaking revelation about his new abilities. He begins to speak the name of the technique, his voice dripping with confidence and a hint of mystery. Melsha is struck by a wave of absolute horror as Rizal identifies his new power as Dead Person Resurrection.